Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to part 2 of our look at the great career of the legendary NHL defenseman, Larry Murphy. In part 1, we looked at Larry's 3 full seasons and 6 games for a 4th for the LA Kings. If you haven't seen it, watch it right now. Link is in the description as well as the top right corner. But to quickly recap it, our superb rookie year, where he set an NHL record that still stands to this day, 76 points by a defenseman in a rookie season. The Kings as a whole looked great in his first season, looked like a team that was on the rise and thriving. And speaking of thriving, Murphy did that both defensively and offensively. Also, he's kind of like a fourth forward, if you will, on the Triple Crown line with Marcel Dion, Dave Taylor, and Charlie Simmer, and that was his primary role. But injuries, lack of depth, and direction hindered the Kings. In his second year, he was their best clutch player, and he helped them make the playoffs and avoided many losses that were actually turned into ties. In his third season, his defense evolved, but the team missed the playoffs. 6 games into the 1983-84 season after a bad start, he was traded to the Washington Capitals. And that is the focus of this video, his years with the Caps. Let's talk about Larry Murphy and the Washington Capitals. But first, a backstory. The Washington Capitals, when they first entered the league in 1974-75, pretty much became a proverbial laughingstock, even more so than their counterparts, the Kansas City Scouts. However, unlike the Scouts, who became the Rockies, the Caps were at least making wholehearted efforts to build something special, even if it didn't always succeed. But in the end, people running the team were ultimately clueless. But the Capitals did have something, and someone to cheer for in Mike Gartner, a speedy forward with a beautiful scoring touch. They did, however, draft a prospect by the name of Bob Carpenter in 1981. He even made Sports Illustrated. But it wasn't until late 81-82 that they had a coach that players responded to positively. That was Brian Murray. Roger Crozier, as interim GM, made a great move, drafting a young, hard-hitting, vicious defenseman with a scoring touch by the name of Scott Stevens. But when 32-year-old David Poile took over, as general manager, he made a move that shook the foundation of the team in a very positive fashion. He traded star winger Ryan Walter and strong defenseman Rick Green to Montreal for forward Craig Laughlin, two-way specialist and Iron Man Doug Jarvis, Brian Engblom, who the Caps would actually trade to get Murphy, and defenseman Rod Langway. Rod had changed the team's fortunes due to his traditional stay-at-home play, perfected in an era where the scoring defenseman is king. His leadership, guidance, and all-around presence lifted the Caps to their first winning season ever, and first playoff appearance. Due to this, he won the Norris Trophy as the league's top defenseman in 1982-83. And Larry Murphy is joining one of the fastest rising clubs in the league, and a defense that is sharper than a Ginsu knife. Langway is the traditionalist excelling in the modern game, Stevens is the hungry young gun, and Murphy gives this defense a little bit of offense and his defensive style of momentum shifting. But Washington was having a problem. They started 0-6-0, a very disappointing start from a team people had high hopes for. And that's why they were eager to drop Engblom, who wasn't off to a good start himself, and make this deal. Murphy didn't dress for the next game quite yet, and they fell to 0-7-0. On this defense, in addition to Langway, Stevens, and Murphy, they also had Murphy's fellow 1980 first-round draft alum, first-round pick Darren Veit, and Finnish import Timo Blomqvist, more toughness than Dave Shan, and Swedish import Peter Anderson. Up front, the Caps still had the great Gartner, the two-way specialist in Jarvis, as well as defensive forwards Bobby Gould, bengt-ake Gustafsson, Alan Hayworth, and Gaetan Duchene. They also had reliable Glenn Curry, Craig Laughlin, before mentioned, and young star Bob Carpenter. In net, the men that they are protecting, Al Jensen and Pat Riggin, very talented goaltenders. And they are a very defensive-minded team, unlike the Kings. Murphy's game will have to change, and now we're off and running. Larry Murphy suited up for the Capitals for the first time on October 22nd, 1983, 4 days after the trade, hosting Bobby Clarke, Mark Howe, and their division rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers. Murphy saw limited ice time as he was adjusting to the system, but played reasonably well. The Caps win 4-1, finally getting their first win of the season. He got a little more ice time in a 1-0 shutout win over the lowly Penguins, and also looked good again. He played his best game yet so far, breaking up many rushes against the lowly Devils, giving the Caps a 2-0 win. Third in a row, all against division rivals. They throttled a struggling Stars club 6-1, and Murph was a +1 in that outing. And Larry was out there working at a great defensive system with his forwards, who were also grinders, in a game against the Jets, and seemed like he was fully adjusting to Brian Murray's whole coaching scheme. He scored his first goal as a Cap, his first of the season and 56th of his career. He is also a +2 in the big 7-3 win, and the Caps have now won 5 in a row since Murphy has joined the team. Larry, however, began November with a bad outing against his old rivals, the Oilers. Mind you, so did most of the team in a pretty bad 11-3 thrashing, but he was a -4. Ugh. But in the next game against the Canucks, Murphy did something he was very familiar with. As Washington was down 4-2 in the third, he scored a goal, which gave the Caps momentum, and they would tie the game and win in overtime, which was now part of the regular season starting this year. And he was also a +2. He would then assist on a Bob Carpenter goal in a 3-2 win over the Red Wings. He had an assist in another loss to the Oilers. On November 12th, they hosted a very good-looking Rangers team, their division rivals, led by Pierre LaRouche, Ron Greshner, and goalie Glenn Hanlon. 1:44 into the game, Carpenter began a play that led to Laughlin finding a wide-open Larry Murphy for the goal. And later in the period, the Caps leading 2-1 on a power play. Gustafsson gets the puck back to Murphy. At the point, he scores his second goal of the game. 3-1 Caps. They go on to win the game 7-4. And Murphy, for his efforts, is named second star of the game. After that, however, they lose back-to-back games to the Bruins and Rangers on the road. Murphy with an assist in the latter. Next was a home-and-home series with the 4-time defending Stanley Cup champion New York Islanders. And they crushed them! The Caps beat them 7-1, a monster win. Murphy scored the opening power play marker and would later assist on a Mike Gardner power play goal. However, on the island, on the very next day, the Isles dominated the Caps in return 6-2. Murphy did have an assist. He finished out the month with an assist against the Blackhawks in a tie, and was a +1 in a win over the Rangers, breaking up many offensive rushes. He had an assist and was a +3 in a stunning 5-2 win in Montreal over the Habs, as he led a great attack. They ended the month against the Nordiques, but would lose 6-3. Larry had an assist. His first full month with the Caps in November saw him score 4 goals, 8 assists for 12 points in 13 games. He was a -2, but more often than not, he looked good. December, however, was an average month for our hero. 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points in 14 games, and a -3. The month started out well enough with 2 assists and an 8-4 win over the Devils, but he did get a goal against his former team at home as the Caps shut out a bad-looking Kings club 5-0, and it was clear he knew his former teammates well enough to shut down their offense. Those were the biggest highlights, and while the Caps were just a game below 500 to end the year, calendar year that is, of 1983, they were considered to be one of the NHL's biggest disappointments. And indeed, many experts got on Murphy's case for not fully adjusting to Murray's strategy. Well, 1984 would tell a bit of a different story. Our hero in the Capitals kicked off the new year with a 3-game homestand, and Larry led another comeback down 2-0. He assisted on a Bob Carpenter goal that began a comeback to fight for a 2-2 tie. And then Murphy then scored the opening goal en route to a 5-1 win over the Blues. And then had an assist against the Sabres and a loss. Then it was a 4-game road trip. The first stop was Philadelphia against the Flyers, and this was the game memorable for Gustafsson's 5-goal night, where Murphy assisted on one of them, as well as assisting on a goal to Dave Christian in a huge 7-1 win. But 3 days later, on January 11, 1984, Larry Murphy returns to where it all began, in Los Angeles, taking on his struggling former Kings team. He gets a mixed reaction of cheers and boos upon his arrival. The Kings were leading 2-1 in the second period, but Doug Jarvis wins a faceoff and it gets back to Murphy, who slaps it home past Marco Barron to tie the game 2-2. The Caps go on to win 4-2. Murphy's return to his old home was a biggie, and the Caps finished the road trip beating the Canucks 6-4, but they were edged up by Calgary 3-2. Murphy still played reasonably well in this road trip. On January 17th, the Caps return home to face a struggling Jets club, still led by superstar Dale Hawerchuk. And off the opening draw of the game, faceoff master Doug Jarvis carried the puck in and found Murphy wide open for a goal, his 10th of the year. And the Caps, just 11 seconds in, are up 1-0. And they led 4-1 in the second period on a power play. Gustafsson back to Murphy, who slides it over to Vink. He scores! 5-1 Caps. Then later in the period, Langway sends Murphy in on a goal. He scores again! His second of the game, 2 goals, a helper, 3 points, and an 8-3 win for the Capitals. Murphy is named second star of the game, but this kicked off something huge. A 14-game unbeaten streak. Yes. The following game was a win over Chicago, 5-3. There was a tight 3-2 win over the pathetic Pens. Larry a +2 and a key frustrating in the Pens offense, such as Mike Bullard. Murphy played a great shutdown game in a 2-2 tie against Perreault, Anderchuk, Housley, and the Sabres. He was also a +1, and he also played great shutting down the Leafs at home. Then, the very next day, against the Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada, they humiliated them at the Gardens 8-0 in front of a national audience. Murphy again playing very well. In January total, Murphy had 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. It was a big +6 in 13 games, a heavy improvement. His best month with the Caps so far this season. But the win streak went into February. He helped hold the Devils to just 14 shots in a 2-0 win. Then it was a 4-1 win over a very mediocre Habs club. And in perhaps their biggest win of the year so far, 9-2 thrashing of the Oilers. Murphy had 2 assists, one each to Gardner and Duchesne, and was a monster +4. Was amazing on all ends of the ice, leading his offensive rushes and holding the Oilers to just 18 shots. His counterpart, Paul Coffey, was a -3. He would miss the next game, a 6-1 win over the Flames, but returned for a 6-3 win over the Flyers. He assisted on a Dave Christian opening goal in a 4-1 win over the Stars. But then it was another visit to Los Angeles against his old team. Larry scored the game-winning goal, was a +3, and helped hold it to just 18 shots in a 4-2 win. Again, knowing his fellow former offense, well, seemed to help. To end the streak, however, Murphy had a rough night in a 4-2 win over the Blues and was a -2. But on the 13 games he played on this streak, he had 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points, a huge +10 in those 13 games. To finish off February, the Caps would sadly lose 3 straight, and Murph would have a lackluster outings, but he played great in the February 26th win over the Whalers, but they finished the month with another loss, this one to the Canucks. In February as a whole, Murphy had a goal, 4 assists, 5 points in 12 games, and was an even 0. But now there's only 15 games left going into March, and the Caps are in 4th. But don't worry, they've already clinched the playoffs. This is Rich Destroy with the Patrick Division for a long time. The Pens and Devils suck ice, and would perennially for a little while, while the other 4 teams compete for positioning merely. That's it. The Caps' 76 points are only 2 back of the Flyers in 3rd, and just 3 points back of the Rangers for 2nd, and they could still catch the Islanders at 1st. Doesn't seem probable, even if it is possible, but here we go. And they began the month with an 8-game unbeaten streak, and Murphy was crazy good here. First, he had 2 assists in a 9-1 spanking against the Penguins, helped shut down the Rangers' offense the next game, and was a +2 in a 5-1 win. He had a goal and an assist in the 3rd star in a 5-2 win on the road against the Penguins. He had an assist and was a +3 in a win over the Whalers. Again, playing a great game all over the rink, 3rd star in that game. He was a +2 in a win over the powerful Nords in a 5-3 win, then played well again in a 2-1 win over the Big Bad Bruins. He had an assist as the Devils stunned them in a tie, however, but the streak hits 8 and played very well in a huge 2-1 win over the Islanders, where he had an assist. This put the Caps 1 point behind the Islanders for first place. On this streak, Larry had a goal, 6 assists for 7 points. It was a +9 in those 8 games. But they'd lose 5-3 to the Blues, but then they'd win 4 in a row. First, a win over the Stars, 5-1. Larry with an assist, then in a 6-0 win over the Pens. An assist and a +2 in that one. Then they beat the Pens 4-3 in an exciting outing at the Igloo. An assist in a 6-2 win over the Devils. During this stretch, he had 3 assists and was a +2. And with 2 games left, they were still just a point behind the Islanders, who themselves were keeping on winning. And they face them on March 31st. If the Caps win, and the Islanders lose their next game as well, their last one of the season, they will win the division title for the first time. But they did not. And Murphy didn't play overly well either. Veteran goaltender Billy Smith of the Isles was a wall for this club, and the Caps lose 3-1. But to end the season, they would face the Flyers, who were actually just 1 point back of taking 2nd place from them. But Larry plays a solid game. They win 4-1. They finish the season with a record of 48 wins, 27 losses, 5 ties for 101 points. This is the Caps' first 100-point season as a team and best season in their 10-year history. Larry Murphy finished the final 15 games with a goal, 10 assists, 11 points, and a great +7 in 15 games. And now, we'll return to the postseason as it's playoff time. And awaiting the Caps in the Patrick Division semifinal is the Philadelphia Flyers, who finished 44-26-10, 98 points, just 3 points behind the Caps in the standings in 3rd place. And this is a team with a great deal of playoff experience. The Caps only made their first playoff appearance the year prior and have yet to win a playoff game, let alone a playoff series. The Flyers didn't have a very good power play, however, and they had a passable penalty kill. Coached by Bob McCammon, who was also their GM as well, the Flyers did have a great overall offense and an excellent defense and solid goaltending. So it mattered where it was important. The Caps edged them out in the season series with a 4-3-0 record. Now remember, the first round is still a best-of-5, so let's see who makes out this Flyers club. First, we have Tim Kerr, one of the best goal scorers of his era. There was nothing pretty about his play. He could score, and that's what he needed to do, and he did it very well. Great in the slot, on rebounds, deflections, and occasionally he would launch a beautiful shot. His 54 goals were tied for third in the league. He had 39 assists, totaling 93 points, leading his entire team in scoring. He also was tied for second with 45 even strength goals and was an excellent plus 30. He got 2 votes for the Hart Trophy as league MVP as well. Also there, the very talented Brian Propp, a hard-working, versatile winger, had another excellent year, 39 goals, 53 assists for 92 points, all career highs across the board in his 5th season. It was also career best plus 47. Wow. He also got 2 votes for the Selke Trophy and was awarded to the league's top defensive forward. A new rookie came out of the woodwork and delivered an assist to a specialist, Dave Poulin. Not only did he score 31 goals and 45 assists for 76 points in 73 games, he was also a plus 31 as a tremendous checker and grinder along the boards, top-notch penalty killer, and he just missed out on being a finalist for the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie, coming in 4th in voting. Also in this forward core, 2 future Hall of Famers, Daryl Sittler with 71 games playoff experience, and Bobby Clark, who I covered on this channel, in his 15th and final season with 133 games of postseason play, 4 Cup final appearances with his name on the Stanley Cup twice, as a captain to boot. And they have not 1, but 2 Sutter brothers, youngsters Ron and Rich. Also finished import Ilika Sinisawa, Ray Allison, and Len Hackburn. Leading the defense is the great Mark Howe, a tremendous defender with traditional skills with a burst of offensive prowess. He had 19 goals, 34 assists for 53 points, and was an excellent plus 30. He was 10th in Norris Trophy voting as the league's top defenseman. He played 71 games. And also this core featured more excellent talents, including the impactful Brad McCrimmon, Czech import Miroslav Dvorak, old school Brad Marsh, and underrated Doug Crossman. The Flyers did have 2 very good goaltenders, but the one who will see the most action in this series is Bob Froese, who had a tremendous year, finishing 28, 13, and 7. His wins were tied for 4th best in the league. His 3.15 goals against average was 5th best, and his 887 save percentage is 8th best, and he added 2 shutouts. So now, here we go. Game 1 at the sold-out Cap Center, it's packed to the rafters. And the Flyers did lead 2-1 at one point, but Murphy and the defensive system, both up front and on the blue line, broke any chance the Flyers had trying to extend their lead, and eventually the Caps were able to garner momentum because of that. A win, 4-2. Murphy was a +1 in the win, and it was the first game the Caps have ever won in the playoffs. Game 2, the Caps fans are ready to see them take full control of the driver's seat. It was a tightly knit game early on, but Brad Marsh, of all people, got the Flyers on the board. But 123 later, on a power play, Murphy, that's a Langway who sees Gardner, he scores! The game is tied 1-1. The Caps would, however, trail 2-1 after 1. But then it was 2-2 after 2. Then 2:53 into the third, Murphy sends it up to Carpenter, who finds Craig Laughlin for the goal. The Caps go up 3-2 en route to a 6-2 win. 2 apples and a +2, a huge game for our hero. And the Caps are now 1 win away from committing a sweep. Game 3 at the Spectrum in Philly. Larry is working hard, but the Flyers are bombarding goaltender Al Jensen. But he's playing the game of his life. The Caps cohesively come together to win it 5-1. They have swept up the Flyers in 3 straight. They have won their first playoff series ever. And Murphy was excellent, especially in his shutdown abilities against the high-powered Flyers offense. His performance in Game 2 definitely stuck out. His 2 assists would be the points of the series, and he was an excellent +4, helping the Caps to another historic first in their franchise. But things are about to get tough. Oh boy. Yes, standing in their way, the 4-time defending Stanley Cup champions, the New York Islanders. Indeed, the team that has dominated the league for 5 seasons and finished 50 wins, 26 losses, 4 ties for 104 points, finishing again 3 points ahead of the Caps for first place in the Patrick Division and second best record in the league. They had a strong power play and one of the best penalty kills in the league. They've scored the 3rd most goals in the league and given up the 4th least. Head coach Al Arbor still runs a smoothly oiled machine, even with some of their biggest guns missing many games due to injury. He never let his team lose focus. They swept out the Caps last season in 3 straight in the playoffs, but this is a best-of-7 series, and the Capitals have grown significantly in the last year. However, Washington lost the season series, going 3-4-0 against the Isles, but also know that the Islanders' dynasty was also close to actually ending in the first round of the Patrick Division semifinal against the Rangers. That went the full 5 games, and it took overtime, a thrilling overtime, to win. But either way, this great club brings their 17 straight playoff series wins into this series. And just how good are they? I'm sure some of you know, but, well, let's go over it anyway. We start with Mike Bossy, perhaps the greatest sniper to ever play the game. An unbelievable release, amazing hands, and knew how to find any given open spot. 51 goals, which is his 7th consecutive 50-goal season in all 7 seasons he has played at this point. Adding 67 assists for 118 points, 5th best in the league. Tied for 2nd in even strength goals of 45, tied for 2nd in game-winning goals of 11. His plus 65 was 3rd best in the league. He notched his 4th consecutive first-team All-Star selection. He won the Lady Byng Trophy for excellence in sportsmanship for the 2nd straight time. He came in 6th place for Hart Trophy voting as league MVP. What's even more incredible about this? He missed 13 games, playing at 67, and still did all this. Wow. And of course we have Bryan Trottier next at center. Perhaps one of the best two-way forwards of all time, with dominance, skill, and playmaking up front, and incredible shutdown abilities as well, and an ace in the face-off circle. 40 goals, 71 assists for 111 points, 8th best in the league. His incredible plus 68 was 2nd best. He was a finalist for the Hart Trophy as league MVP, coming in 3rd in voting. He was a 2nd-team All-Star for a 2nd time. He was also a finalist for the Selke Trophy, coming in 2nd to Capital center Doug Jarvis, no less. And he missed 12 games and racked up these numbers. But one of the biggest reasons for the Islanders' success over these years is a man who is a coach's dream, John Tonelli. Pure grit, can work the boards just about better than anyone else in the league at this time, was a great momentum shifter. Hard work ethic, excellent on the penalty kill. He added 27 goals, 40 assists for 67 points in 73 games, so he could score, and a very good plus 21. He had an excellent shooting percentage, 25.7, 4th best in the league. He came in 6th in Selke Trophy voting. 3 other Islanders forwards also got Selke votes, penalty killer Bob Bourne, Greg Gilbert, who was 3rd in shooting percentage, and future Hall of Famer Clark Gillies. And they too had 2 setters, Dwayne and Brent, the latter of whom is considered by many to be the best setter on ice. Also another two-way specialist, veteran Butch Goring, fan favorite clutch master Bob Nystrom, Anders Keller, and rookies Pat Flatley and Pat LaFontaine. And the defense, oh boy, leading the way, the team captain Denny Potvin, who had one of the best seasons of his career. A tremendous puck handler who helped in continuing the evolving game of the offensive defenseman. 22 goals, 63 assists for 85 points in 78 games. His plus 54 is 5th best in the league, and 6th in defensive point shares with a 6.0. He was a 2nd-team All-Star for a 2nd time, and just missed out on being a finalist for the Norris Trophy, coming in 4th. They also had the underrated and traditional Ken Morrow, who garnered a vote for the Norris. Swedish imports Thomas Jansson and Stefan Persson both had a great year, and so did the grossly underrated Dave Langevin and Paul Boutillier. And a goal? Batlin Billy Smith, one of the toughest, nastiest goalies in the league, a competitive being, but a man you want in the clutch and in the playoffs. He finished the season with a record of 23-13-2 in the regular season, had a 3.42 goals against average, but his tremendous .896 save percentage was 2nd in the league to teammate Rolly Melanson. So if he were to go down with injury, well, at least he'd have a really reliable backup. He added 2 shutouts and came in 7th for Vezina Trophy voting as top goaltender. He has backstopped them in the playoffs throughout this whole dynasty. Ken Murphy and the Caps finally, and the Isles. Well, here we go. Game 1, Nassau Coliseum on the island, and the Isles got 2-0 in the second, but Murphy and the defense set up a shutdown strategy that actually stymies the Islanders. And a thrilling comeback win, 3-2 on the road. That is huge, as the Caps take the first game. Game 2, however, starts out bad. The Capitals find themselves down 3-0. They did, however, close the gap to 3-2, but trail 4-2 after 1. Yes, that all happened in one period. The Caps, however, come back and tie up 4-4 and force overtime, but Keller wins it for the Isles. Murphy largely ineffective here, but the series is tied 1-1, heading to the Caps Center. Game 3, the Caps Center is indeed rocking, and Murphy is back to helping with the shutdown as the Isles can't get much pressure going on Reagan. And the game is scoreless after 1, as the Caps can't solve Smith, however. And just over 5 minutes into the second period, Murphy hits a nice feed to Howarth, and the Caps strike first. But the experience of the Islanders proves to be too much, and the Capitals lose 3-1. Murphy plays well, but now the Capitals trail the series 2-1. Game 4, however, the Caps fans still have faith, and so does the team itself. They know it's not over. But the Isles just take them apart and win 5-2. Murphy does not play well. It's a -2. And now the Caps on the verge of elimination, trailing the series 3-1. And back to the island we go for Game 5. And hey, it looks great early. The Capitals lead 2-0 after goals by Jarvis and Christian and take the lead into first intermission. And they go on to lose 5-3. And Murphy plays okay, but regardless, their season is over. The Capitals are eliminated in 5 games, 4 games to 1. Murphy had an assist and was a -2 in 5 games. The thing was, though, he played a lot better than Stevens and Langway, who were really just not doing much of anything in this series. But there's no major shame here, that being said. They lost the 4-time defending Cup champions, for crying out loud, who won 17 straight playoff series going into this and now have won their 18th. And the Isles would indeed make it to the Cup for the 5th straight time, but actually losing 5 games to the Oilers. Murphy's first season with the Capitals saw him score 13 goals, 33 assists for 46 points in 72 games after the trade. And he was scattered quite a bit with his contributions. 4 different players assisted on Murphy's goals 3 times. Rod Langway, Bob Carpenter, bengt-ake Gustafsson, and Doug Jarvis. He set up Mike Garner 7 times, and they teamed up on 11 goals together total. He collaborated on assists with 15 different players, the most being 4 with Dave Christian and Gustafsson. He and Gustav teamed up for 10 goals together. And indeed, Murphy was often paired with the man himself, Rod Langway, who that year won his 2nd straight Norris Trophy. But Murphy made a strong defense even stronger in Washington. It took him a while to find his footing, but he got there in the nick of time. And come the new year, never looked back. He changed the Caps' fortunes after they started 0-7-0, and was key in the big year for Langway, as the 2 different styles seemed to complement each other. Not to mention that 14-game unbeaten streak, which Larry played 13 in, leading the Caps to 101 points, their best season yet, their first playoff series win ever, where he played extremely well. Indeed, this Washington Capitals team is still growing, and still have yet to solve the Islanders, but he's up to the task, and so are the rest of his boys. Murphy ranked 9th best in the NHL in the defensive point shares, a stat that actually evaluates the points a player contributes to their defense, and also used to compare a player's performance to the league average, and then they can help identify well-rounded players, defensive defensemen, and players who are actually performing well in a poor environment. Murphy's number was a 5.6. He was tied with Mike Ramsey of the Sabres. Teammates Dave Shan, Rod Langway, and Scott Stevens were 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, respectively. Well, indeed, Murphy started out his year, 6 games, on a struggling Kings team with no direction and too many internal problems. And he was traded to a team that was going to be a great defense, but a team that was also off to a very disappointing start, but he got them to where they needed to be. Combined, he played 78 games, 13 goals total, 36 assists for 49 points, and overall was a +5. Murphy still shows what value he can be to any role he needs to play, and going forward in Washington, he'll be very significant. As the 1984-85 season approaches, Murphy is preparing for his 5th season. And many experts believe, and even some defensemen themselves who have played the game, have said that usually the 5th year is when the defenseman's game is fully developed. We've seen Murphy evolve in several different ways already, but one could wonder that since he's already been playing for the 2nd team of his career, will his progress be hindered? Also, it must have been heartbreaking as he was barely considered for Team Canada on the 1984 Canada Cup team. But the fact is, he's playing on arguably the best defensive core in the league, and now they've added veteran Mike McEwen, who brings Stanley Cup experience, having won 3 with the Islanders. He was most recently playing for Murphy's former team, the LA Kings. The Caps, who are also among the league's top 5 favorites for odds on winning the Stanley Cup. So, here we go. The season started out decent enough for Murphy. He had 2 assists and was a +1 in 9 games, highlights being a huge game against his former team, the Kings, holding them just 18 shots, and was a +3 in a 5-3 win on October 16th. He played very good against the Rangers next game and was a +2 in a 6-5 loss. And then he notched an assist on a key Bob Carpenter goal in a huge 3-3 tie over the defending Stanley Cup champion Oilers. After a win over the lowly Devils, the Caps went on a 5-game winless streak. He did play well, however, in a 4-3 loss to the Rangers, but had a disastrous outing against the Oilers, was a -5. Oh, youch. He played better in a tie with the Devils and had an assist and a +1 in a tie with the Stars, and also had a good game in a 3-2 loss against the Sabres. But the Caps go 0-3-2 in this stretch. Murphy had an assist and was a -2 during those games. The Caps would end the losing skid by going back home and beating the Sabres 3-2 in turn, but lost the Islanders 5-3. And then it was a 3-3 tie with the Pens, as Larry squared up with a youngster by the name of Mario Lemieux in his rookie season. And Murphy had 2 assists and was a +1, while Lemieux had an assist in a thrilling game. Then it was another loss, however, to the Islanders. The Caps aren't looking good, but that changed with a 6-game winning streak. First a big game against the Blackhawks, a goal and assist, and a 5-0 win over Savard and Larmer. Then a big 9-2 thrashing over the Stastnys, Dirty Dale, and the Nordiques. Larry with 2 helpers and a huge +3. Then it was a 2-1 win over the Rangers to end November, where in total Murphy had a goal, 6 assists, 7 points, +1 in 13 games. The streak continued as December began with a thrilling 5-4 win over the Bruins. The lowly Pens are without Mario, and it showed as Larry had 2 goals, including a nice solo effort and a 9-1 win. And then 2 assists and a 4-1 win over the Devils, and was named second star of the game. He was also a +2. And during this stretch, Murphy had 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. It was a very impressive +5 in all 6 games. And then after a loss to the Jets where Murphy had a goal, in December it was an 8-game unbeaten streak. First it was a goal and an assist in a 4-0 win over Stevie Y and the Red Wings. He was the second star of that game. He had then assist on Carpenter's key tying goal in a 3-3 tie with the Blues. After a tight 3-2 win over the Stars, Murphy was excellent with a +2 and a 4-2 win over a disappointing division rival Rangers club. And played well in another win against them on the road on 6-3. Then a mini road trip to La Belle Province. They got the better of the Nords once again, 4-1. He had an assist on that one. Then it was a 2-2 tie with the Habs of the Forum as Larry went toe-to-toe with counterpart rookie blue liner Chris Chelios. And then an assist in a 7-5 win over the Blues. And during this streak, Murphy a goal, 4 assists, 5 points, and +5. The streak, however, came to an end in a loss to the revamped powerful division rivals, the Flyers. In part 1 of the home-and-home series, with the Caps bounce back, dominated the Boxing Day rematch, 6-0. Larry had 2 assists and was a +2, and he had an assist in a 5-4 win over the Islanders, finally getting the best of them, and the month ended with a win over Hartford. Overall, an excellent December for our hero. 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points in 16 games, and a +4. New Year's Day 1985, the Caps hosted an inconsistent Bruins team, but either way, he had 2 assists and a +2 and a 5-1 win. It was named third star of the game. But then they weren't able to dominate the Nords this time because Quebec won 5-3. Murphy did have an apple, but was a -2. Then it was a mini 3-game road swing. Murphy played great shutdown style and +1 and a 4-2 win over Detroit. Then he assisted on Mike McEwen's game-winning goal and a 4-2 win over the Blues. He had a goal in a game against the Devils, but rookie Kirk Muller and crew stunned the Caps as they lose 5-3. But then it's another streak, this time a 7-game winning streak. It began with a 6-3 win over the Stars. Murphy was a +2, then in a tight 5-4 win over the Pens, but then they dominated them at home. 6-2, Larry had an assist and was a +4, breaking up much momentum that the Pens were trying to garner. He had 2 goals, it was a +3, and was second star in a dominant 7-1 win over the lifeless Rangers. In the last 2 games, he had 3 points and was a +7. And then he had 2 assists, including on Carpenter's game winner with 157 to play in a tight 3-2 win over the Hawks. Now he has 5 points in 3 games and is a +8. Well, the Caps then beat the Islanders 5-1 on the road, and then beat them 5-2 at home. Murphy had a goal in that one. In total, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in those 7 games, and a monster +8. In the whole month of January, he was superb. 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points in 13 games, and a +8. One of the best months of his career. He was an absolute machine, and fans in Washington were starting to make him just a little more popular, along with other stars on this team. Things continued to look good in February for our hero. Highlights included a dominant 4-1 win over the Leafs, where Murphy had an assist and was a huge +3, was breaking up several rushes. A few games later, he had 2 assists and a tight 4-3 win over Lanny McInnes and the Flames. Well, then 2 games later, he had an assist and was +3 and a dominant 6-2 win over the struggling Canucks. And then Larry played a beauty against the Oilers in a 3-3 tie, restricting their onslaught to just 21 shots and was a +2, leading many offensive rushes. In total, a goal, 6 assists, 7 points in 12 games, and a massive +10. That is just insane. With 17 games to go, 14 in March, 3 in April, the Caps were 38, 16, and 9 for 85 points. First place in the Patrick Division, just 1 away from officially clinching a playoff spot. Yeah, it's not as secure as last year, as the Pens and Devils are still in the hunt. The spoiler, they didn't make it. But the Caps are in line to win their first division title ever. Well, after a loss against the Sabres, they beat the Devils to clinch their spot in the playoffs, but then they lose back-to-back games to Philadelphia, something they don't need to do right now. Murphy had 2 assists in the first game and did not play well, however, in the next outing. He played a lackluster game against Boston. He missed the March 14th win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, which broke the losing streak. Then he returned and played a beauty against the Islanders. A goal, 2 helpers, third star of the game, and they lost 6-4. They sit at 89 points. Now the Flyers sit in first with 93. Then he had a goal and a helper in a 4-1 win over the Devils, was named second star. They split a home-and-home series with the Habs and beat the Pens. Larry had an assist on that one. Then back-to-back losses against the Whalers and Devils, teams they should be beating. And with 4 games left, they sit at 92 points. The Flyers have 105 and they win a division. But Larry plays a great last 2 games of the season, a home and home with the Pens, 7-4 win on the road, a goal, 2 helpers, 3 points, second star, then a goal and a helper in the final game of the season, an excellent 7-3 win. In that final stretch, Murphy had 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points in 16 games. Excellent numbers, but it was a -3. The Caps finished an excellent 46-25-9 for 101 points, tying the team's all-time best point total from last year. Good enough, again, for second place in the Patrick Division. And now, it's playout time. And oh boy, here we go again. It's the New York Islanders looking to make their 6th straight Stanley Cup final. The Isles, however, weren't as dominant as they used to be. They finished with a good record of 40 wins, 34 losses, and 6 ties for 86 points. 15 back of the Caps. Many feel their time is up, despite still having a very good team guided by Al Arbour, but they weren't able to overcome the aging of some of their stars, and, of course, a lot of injuries. But regardless, this is a team with heavy playoff experience still, and they're a threat to just about anyone. They still have the top power play and top penalty kill as well in the league. A great offense, but their defense and goaltending struggled a bit this year. But this is still a team not to be taken lightly. Mike Bossy, another incredible year, 58 goals, 3rd best in the league. His record keeps building with his 8th straight 50-goal season, adding 59 assists for 117 points, 6th best in the league. He's a very good plus 37, 4th in even strength goals with 40, tied for 9th in power play goals with 14, and he was tied for 7th in shorthanded goals with 4, and tied for 7th in game-winning goals with 7. He was a second-team All-Star for the 3rd time, but his bid for a 3rd straight Lady Byng trophy fell short, and he also fell short of being a finalist, coming in 4th. He garnered 6 Hart Trophy votes, but Brent Sutter, always a key member of the Isles in their defensive forward core, but he established himself as one of the elite 2-way players in the league. 40 goals, 62 assists for 102 points, tied for 10th best in scoring. An amazing plus 42. He can still cover and frustrate the best centers in the league. He was 8th in Selke Trophy voting. Many believe that was highway robbery. And he got a vote for the Hart Trophy as well. And John Tonelli had a career year as well. 42 goals, 58 assists for his first 100-point season. A plus 49, which was 7th best in the league. Tied for 7th in even strength goals with 33. And 10th best on total goals on ice for with 157. He was a finalist for the Selke Trophy, coming in 3rd. Had a vote for the Hart Trophy. He was a second-team All-Star for the 2nd time in his career. Brian Trottier again missed 12 games, but he struggled a little bit, but was still good enough with 59 points in 68 games and still superb on the penalty kill. Bob Boring, Clark Gillies, and Anders Keller missed a combined 91 games, but they are ready for the playoffs, and so is Bob Nystrom, missed 44, but sadly Greg Gilbert's season is done. But Dwayne Sutter is still healthy. Youngsters Pat LaFontaine and Pat Flatley are ready. And on the defense, Denny Potvin is still in command of this core. And he had another great year despite some injuries and lackluster play of others. 17 goals, 51 assists for 68 points, and a plus 36. 8th in total goals on ice for with 159, just ahead of Tonelli. Ken Morrow only played in 50 games this year, but is ready for the playoffs. Dave Langevin missed 24, but he's here. Same with Stefan Persson, who missed. Tony 6. Tom Janssen missed 11. And they also have Paul Boutillier and Gord Dineen to round this core out. And in net, the man they continue to trust is Billy Smith. He had a year. 18, 14, and 3 record, not bad, but not below his usual standard. And also speaking of below average 3.82 goals against average and a .879 save percentage. Ricky Kelly-Rudy had a better year, but you go with the man who's gotten you through your glory days many times. Can Murphy and the Caps beat this battered and somewhat aging Isles club? Well, let's find out. Game 1, the Cap Center is more excited than ever. They feel this is the year. In the first period, Murphy and the Caps and defense and grinders are not allowing their rivals to pick up any momentum. But on the other end, Billy Smith is still as sharp as ever. But the second period, things got crazy. The Isles went up 2-0 at the midway point of their frame, and Q, number 8. And Q, a 2-man advantage. Carpenter has it, slides it back to the point to Stevens, gets it over to Murphy on the outside, and he shoots it home for a goal. The Caps are in it. 16 seconds later, still in a power play, 1-man advantage. Bobby to Mikey to Larry. Yeah, that's right. 2 goals, 16 seconds apart, and the Caps have tied it 2-2, and it was 3-3 after 2. Third period, however, settled down, and the Caps defense changed things up. Murphy was key still at keeping the Islanders at bay, and we're off to overtime. And just 2:28 in, Howarth scores, and the Caps center erupts, and they take Game 1 in thrilling fashion. A huge game for our hero. He was on elite level on this night. Game 2, the Caps center is crazy with anticipation as the Isles decide to start Kelly Rudy in net. And it's a goaltending clinic between he and Jensen. They're making some huge saves, and each team has a goal. As the third period winds down, we still have no winner, and for the second straight game, we go to overtime. And it's highly competitive in the extra frame. Time winds down, we still have no winner. Second overtime, 1:28 in. Murphy gets the puck to Carpenter, sends a Mike Gardner for the goal and the win. The Caps go up 2-0 in the series, and Larry has been nothing short of great. Wow, they're actually on the verge of sweeping the Islanders. Oh my goodness, in Game 3, we're at the Island. Both teams' defenses tighten up as Smith is back in net for the Isles, and neither goalie, however, faces much action, and it's scoreless after 1 and after 2. But the Isles finally strike in the third and go 2-0 with 6:16 left. Time is winding down. The Caps press hard. They pull Jensen, and Gardner scores with 41 seconds left, but they did not get the equalizer. They lose 2-1, but still lead the series 2-1. Murphy played a decent game, but not near as good as his first two. Game 4, the Isles strike early, but on a power play near the midway point, Larry sends it to Bobby, who finds Mikey at the net. He scores. The game is tied 1-1, and it's 2-2 after 1. The Caps then took a 3-2 lead, and on a power play, Murphy is steering. Gardner takes the wheel, setting up Gustafson. 4-2 Caps lead after 2 periods. 20 minutes away from finally eliminating the Islanders, and they collapse and lose 6-4. What is happening here? The series is tied 2-2 with a winner-take-all Game 5 to take place in Washington. Game 5, the Cap Center, however, is still going crazy. They still believe in their boys as Reagan gets the start. And the Caps are bombarding Smith while giving Reagan a chance to breathe, and they can't get past him. But the Isles get nothing going. It's scoreless after 1. It's that way until midway through the second period, and the Isles get on the board. And several minutes later, they go up 2-0. This is not good. However, with 29 seconds left in the second, Carpenter wakes up the sleepy Cap Center. The Caps are down by a goal with 1 period to go. They're all over Smith, shot after shot after shot. They can't get anything. The period is winding down. Suddenly, the announcer calls out 1 minute to play. The Caps pull Reagan. 30 seconds left. The fans are on edge, but Smith is still focused. 10 seconds. Can they get it? 5. Come on. 4. No. 3. 2. 1. 0. The Caps lose 2-1 and lose the series in 5, blowing a 2-0 series lead in the process. Murphy had 2 goals and 3 assists for 5 points and was a pretty below average -3. But he was second best in the team in scoring, and Murphy still did all he could. He was excellent in games 1 and 2, and still played actually very well in game 4. But most of the criticism in this series actually went to Reagan and Jensen for not being playoff strong goalies. The Isles' playoff experience put the Caps down again. But now there's less excuses to be had. The Isles, however, would lose in the next round to Flyers in 5 games. But Larry's season did have a silver lining, literally. He joined Team Canada for the very first time at the 1985 World Championships in Czechoslovakia. And joining him on Canada were teammates Scott Stevens and Pat Reagan, on a team that also featured Mario Lemieux, Steve Yzerman, and Ron Francis to boot. Timo Blomqvist represented Finland. Canada was on a mission in this competition, and Murphy was playing excellently, and he was a major factor in what took place on May the 1st, 1985, as Canada, for the first time since 1961, beat the Soviet Union in the World Championships 3-1 in an important playoff round game. Murphy was all over top forwards like Sergei Makarov. It was a big moment. Canada, however, would have to settle for a silver, but they're actually their first silver since 1962. Murphy was a tremendous 2 goals, 6 assists, and 8 points in 8 games, but was robbed of tournament all-star selection despite receiving heavy praise. Either way, he has a medal around his neck to end this season. And back to the regular season. Larry Murphy had 14 goals, 42 assists for 56 points in 79 games, had chemistry with, well, just about everyone it seems. 3 players set him up for 3 goals each, Gustafson, who he continued to have chemistry with, as well as Dave Christian and Craig Laughlin. But he was a huge key in Bob Carpenter's superstar season, setting him up for 13 goals. Nearly a third of Murphy's assists were to Bobby, who had 53 that year. Together, Murphy and Carpenter collaborated one way or another for 19 goals. And he collaborated on 6 assists with each Mike McEwen and the other Mike Gardner, who he continued to shine with. And those two teamed up one way or another for 16 points. And a dream pairing took place many times this season. Larry Murphy and Scott Stevens were together, and they had magic everywhere, including on the power play, which was ranked 4th in the league, and together they teamed up for 11 goals. Larry was once again in the top 10 for defensive point shares, ranked at exactly number 10 with a 5.6, once again emphasizing his significant role on a team in every which way that they need him for a given situation. But his lack of recognition, well, it was actually starting to become a little more noticeable. Well, hey, another excellent year for our hero. But as part of a great defense, he is getting overlooked. As a matter of fact, he had literally 0 votes for any awards, including Team All-Star votes or anything, since his rookie season. Yet as of May, he finished a plus 21, that's a career high, and got his first taste of international success with that World Championship silver. Despite the lack of accolades or recognition, at least his team and the fans of the Caps know what he brings to the table, and they know that he's of value, but they still need to reach that next step. For the upcoming 1985-86 season, Larry Murphy would be without Mike McEwen on his core, who he had good chemistry with, but this defense somehow got stronger with the addition of rookie Kevin Hatcher. Despite their playoff heartbreak, the Caps were given the 3rd best odds in the league to win the Stanley Cup at 400-1, only behind the 2 teams that made it last season, the division rival Flyers and the 2-time defending Cup champion Oilers. It should be noted for Murphy that 2 hockey publications both put him in their list of the top 10 most underrated players in the league going into the season. But these distractions didn't really bother him as he's ready for another season of hockey. But it started out very poorly. Not only did the Caps lose their first 3 games, and they were all division rivals, a 4-2 loss to the Rangers, a 4-1 loss to the Devils, and a 4-2 loss at home to the Flyers. He was a -5 and had 1 helper in his opening stretch. Murphy did play decently as they broke the losing skid against rookie Wendell Clark and the Toronto Maple Leafs in a 6-5 win. Then it was a home-and-home series against the Sabres, first at the old odd. Murph had an assist in a 4-1 win, then scored the first goal of the year in a 2-2 tie at home. So now the Caps are unbeaten in 3, but then they lose 4-2 to Calgary. Larry assisted on both goals, then added another apple in a 7-7 tie with, yes, the Jets, and then they'd beat the Hawks 8-4. The final game of the month was to host Doug Gilmour, Bernie Federico, Joey Mullen, and a growing St. Louis Blues club on October 29. But it looked really bad early. The Blues scored 8 seconds in, but near the midway point of the game, power play, Murphy gets the puck up to Carpenter, he gets to Christian who scores. The game is tied 1-1, and the Caps lead 2-1 after 1. After taking a 3-1 lead in the second, just 1:36 later, Adams gets up to Murphy, who puts it on goal for Howarth, making it 4-1, and Larry delivers an apple to Gardner, who scores 5-1, and the Caps go on to win 6-3. Murphy's 3 assists give him the 2nd star of the game honors, and he's looking more like himself. In the 10 games in October, however, he had a goal, 8 assists for 9 points in 10 games, but was a -4. Murphy would miss the home-and-home series against the Isles to start November, but they were the only games he'd miss all year. The Caps did split that series. He returned in a win over Chicago, and then against Mario and the Penguins, and scored a goal in a 4-1 win. But then he scored 2 goals over a heartbreaking loss to Calgary 5-4, both of which were key in tying the game, as the Caps were down 4-2 before Larry scored them both. But on November 12th, Murphy and the Caps stunned the 2-time defending Cup champions, the Edmonton Oilers, 5-2. Gretzky was a -4. Larry played very well. He had an apple, was a +2, and was targeting Gretzky the whole game. Murph continued to play well in a win over the Canucks, and then had a goal and a helper in a 2-2 tie with the Bruins, and was named 2nd star of the game. He scored the game winner in a 4-3 win over the Pens, and played a beauty a few games later against the Habs as a +2, in a 5-3 win over rookie goaltender Patrick Waugh and the Canadiens. That win put the Caps unbeaten at 7, but they ended the month with a tough 5-2 loss against the Rangers, but bounced back beating the Devils. In 12 games, Larry had 5 goals, 3 assists, and 8 points, and was a -1. The next 3 games to start December, the Caps just kept on winning. Victories over the Blues, where Larry was shutting down Blues forwards, giving new acquisition Pete Peters some breathing room in net in a thrilling 3-2 win. Then there was an assist in a 2-1 win over the Canucks, and in a 3-2 win over the Leafs, had a beautiful solo power play goal. That was a 5-game road trip. To start, they beat Dion and the Kings 5-4 in LA, but Murphy had a brutal game against his former club. But regardless, it was the team's 5th win in a row. However, in a wild tie at the Canucks, Murphy had 2 goals and was a +2 and named 1st star of the game. And then they stunned the Oilers again, Larry giving Wayne another rough night, making him a -3. Murphy had a goal and was a +1 in a stunning 5-2 win, heading Edmonton just their 2nd loss at home all year. The Caps are now unbeaten in 7, but that streak came to an end in a brutal loss to Howard Chuck and a disappointing Jets squad. But the Caps bounced back with a 7-5 win over a very good Nordiques team in Quebec. Larry had 4 goals in this road trip in 5 games. The final 3 games of the month, Murphy was playing superbly as they got another win over the Nordiques on Boxing Day, 4-3. They were with an assist on that one. But they were beaten by a solid-looking Blackhawks club, 7-4. Murph had 2 apples. Then he had a goal and an assist in a tough 6-5 loss to the Rangers, still 5 points in 3 games. And overall in December, had 6 goals, 5 assists for 11 points in 11 games, averaging a point a game and was a -1. In the new year of January 1986, Murphy had 7 assists and was a -1 in 14 games. The Caps won 4 in a row to start the month. In 1 game, Murphy had an assist and was a +2 in a 9-3 win over Muller, Bengt-ake, and the Devils. And then they'd lose 3 in a row, but Murph still played pretty well. And then they'd win 3 in a row. Larry again has the Devils number with an assist, and after an assist and a loss to the Islanders, he had 2 apples, 1 each to Christian and Gustafsson in a 6-3 win over the Stars. But then they were upset and throttled by the dead thing Red Wings, who'd won 10 games all year before that night. Larry did not play well, but he did better against Toronto with an assist, but they lost again. But to begin February, a 4-game winning streak, and Larry was incredible. He had 2 assists in a tight 5-4 win against the Devils, including on Greg Adams' game winner with 1:23 to play, and was named 3rd star of the game. Then he had an assist and a goal in a tight 5-4 win over former teammate Doug Jarvis, who had been traded during the season, and a highly improved Hartford Whalers team. His goal was the game winner with 1:15 to play. He then scored the opening goal in a 3-2 win at home over legendary counterpart Larry Robinson and the Habs. But then back home in yet another win over Gretzky and the Oilers, Murphy had 2 apples, his second coming on Gustafsson's overtime winner. 4 wins, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, +3, and bringing back the clutch abilities that he had in LA. Then it was a 6-game road trip. They were crushed by an improved yet still mediocre Penguins team. Then it was a win in LA, and a win on the island where Larry had an assist. Then it was a goal and a 4-4 tie at the Habs, but he didn't play well in losses to Philly and Buffalo. Not the best road trip. Larry had a goal and a helper each and was -4 in 6 games. The Caps go 2-3-1 in this stretch. But the Caps then go on an 8-game winning streak. First on February 25th, 2 assists at home against the dead thing Red Wings without Stevie Y, and both came back-to-back after being down 2-0 and tying the game en route to the 4-3 win. He also assisted on a tying goal and a 2-1 win over Boston. That ended in February, where he had 3 goals, 9 assists for 12 points. It was a +1 in 12 games, a point a game. The streak continued into March, a huge 4-0 win. It was a +2, bringing up many Ranger rushes as they beat them again the very next day in New York as well, and then they beat the Devils back at home. But then in a huge game on the island, 2 big power play goals, adding an assist for 3 points. It was first star of the game, and a 6-2 win on his 25th birthday, no less. Then the next game at home against the Isles, Larry had a helper and a 3-1 win. In those 8 games, Larry had 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, and was a +1. After the March 11th win over the Pens, the Caps are 1 point up on the Flyers for first place as they seek their first division title. They had 13 games left, and while the Flyers had 12. But the very next game, they lost to the Flyers, who themselves now hold first place, but it was a thrilling 5-4 win over the Blues, and Murph had an apple on that one. But then a 5-3 win over the Whalers, a goal and a helper for Larry. But then they get upset by a sad-looking Kings team. They sit in second now at 95 points, and the Flyers are in first with 96 at this point. The Caps then won 3 in a row at home. Murphy was incredible. On March 21st against the Jets, the game was tied 3-3. In the third, when Larry and Laughlin set up Carpenter to go ahead 4-3, then nearly 8 minutes later, Larry set up Greg Adams for the insurance marker as the hero again comes up in the clutch. But this one was huge. On March 23rd, facing the Flyers, who they trail 3 points behind, down 3-2 in the second, Larry sets up Scott Stevens for the big tying goal en route to a thrilling 6-5 win. The Cap center is crazy with joy, and now the Flyers, well, again, simply trail first place for them by 1 point again. Then the Caps beat the mighty Bruins. Well, somewhat mighty Bruins. Murphy with an assist in that one, and on the streak, he had 4 assists and was a +5. The Caps reached 101 points again, easy for me to say, trying their personal best. And they're back in first place, a point ahead of the Flyers. Then a devastating loss to the New York Islanders at home hurt them. And Murph was pretty bad, had a helper, and was a -2 in a 4-3 loss. On March 29th, however, Murphy's clutch heroics came into play once again against the Whalers. The Caps actually blew a 5-3 lead and were trailing 6-5 as time wound down. But then with 2:05, Murphy belts one from the point, and the Caps get the 6-6 tie, giving them their best regular season total, beating their prior 2 marks of 101 points. They now have 102 heading into April. But so do the Flyers, who won that night. Since they have one more win, they have the advantage. Each team has 4 games left. So now it's April 1st, hosting the Pens, who are fighting for their first playoff spot in 4 years. It looked bad early. The Pens struck with a shorthanded goal, but nearly 4 minutes later, Christian and Howarth got it to Larry Murphy, who scored his 20th goal this season. The first time he's reached that mark since his second season back in Los Angeles. 1-1 tie. And then with 1:03 left of the period, Murphy puts on a tape of Langway, who sets up a goal for Laughlin. 2-1 Caps after 1. 2:33 into the second, John Barrett gets it to Murphy, who sees it open. Greg Adams, who scores. 3-1 Caps en route to a huge 5-3 win. Larry Murphy, first star of the game. A goal, 2 helpers, 3 points. A much-needed win for the Caps. And then Larry would score a key tying 2-2 goal against Hartford in a 4-2 win. Was a +3, giving the Caps their first 50-win season ever. But they blew a 4-2 lead with 2 minutes left and had to settle for a tie with the Rangers after that. The Flyers have won 3 in a row. Well, both teams going into the final game of the season. The Caps are 1 point behind at 107. The Flyers have 108. Oh boy. But here we go. As luck would have it, the last game of the year is against the Flyers on April 6th, but it's at the Spectrum in Philly. It has to be a win for the Caps to win the division. Tie won't do it, as Philly will still have more wins and take the title. At 9:23 in, the Caps get one. 52 seconds later, Carpenter gets it back to Murphy. Sets up Laughlin perfectly. 2-0 Capitals. The Flyers do get one back. It's 2-1 Caps after 1. Then the Flyers stun the Caps with 2 quick Brian Prop goals. It's 3-2 after 2. Murphy's doing the best he can. The Flyers take a 4-2 lead in the third. Laughlin scored, cutting the gap to a goal with, 2:08 left. But the Flyers' empty netter wins them their second straight division title. Murphy played well, but it wasn't enough. But wow, was he ever outstanding in the final stretch of March into April. 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points, a huge +8, 19 games. This is one of the best stretches of his career and his clutch heroic shine. And the Caps, despite falling short of first in the Patrick division, still have their best season ever. 50 wins, 23 losses, 7 ties, 107 points. And they are looking good going into playoff time. And once again, these guys, the New York Islanders, they finished the year 39, 29, and 12 for 90 points in third place. Again, not as dominant as they used to be. That didn't stop them last year. Their power play and penalty kill both slipped a bit, but was still strong enough. Also, their offense also wasn't as high, but still really good. Their defense actually tightened and improved heavily. The Isles won the season series with a record of 4-3-0 against the Capitals. They have their number, and they still have the experience, and they still have Mike Bossy. 61 goals, second best in the league, and a record that still stands today. His 9th straight 50-plus goal season. He had a 62 assists for 123 points. 5th best in the league, was an excellent +30. Second in even strength goals with 39. Third in power play goals with 21. And 3-way tie for first in game-winning goals with 9. He's the first-team All-Star for the 5th time. Won his 3rd Lady Byng Trophy. He is also 6th in Hart Trophy voting. Brian Trottier returned to form this year. 37 goals, 59 assists for 96 points. 78 games, excellent +29. He was 10th in Selke Trophy voting. Still one of the best 2-way forwards in the league. And they had a new emerging star, not going to do it, LaFontaine. A highly skilled young wonder, broke out with 30 goals, added 23 assists for 53 points in 65 games, missing 15 due to injury. Brent Sutter had another good season despite injuries. Brother Dwayne looked great. Pat Flatley proved to be reliable despite injuries. Also, Bob Bourne's playoff experience is still an asset, and so is that of Clark Gillies. Rounding out the core, Greg Gilbert, recent acquisition Richard Crom, and heralded rookie Bob Basson. And of course, Denny Potvin still leads the defense, and he's the team captain. 21 goals, 30 assists for 59 points in 74 games, and a great +34. And he also became the NHL's all-time leading scoring defenseman, passing Bobby Orr. Ken Morrow overcame injuries and had a tremendous year. Thomas Janssen was still producing, and Gordon Dineen had a solid year. Paul Houtillier still provided toughness, while new addition Steve Conroy fit in pretty well. But in goal, they're giving a chance to Kelly Rudy. Despite Smith's playoff experience, his play overall was declining a bit. Rudy finished 19, 15, and 8, not bad. His 3.22 goals against average was 4th best. His .906 save percentage was 2nd best. Wow. And he garnered a shutout and was tied for 5th in Vezina Trophy voting. Well, is this more history repeating? Let's find out. Game 1, the Caps center believes once again, this is the year. Goaltenders Rudy and Peters face an onslaught and are playing great. It's 1-1 after 1, but a goal from Carpenter in the second makes it 2-1. A beautiful Dave Christian solo effort puts the game away. Larry is really good here in a +1. 3-1 win as the Caps take the first game. Game 2, the Isles decide to go with Billy Smith. The Caps strike first, but the Isles tie it. It's 1-1. Murphy is helping break any Isles momentum, and the Caps lead 3-2 after 2. But just less than a minute into the third, Larry begins to rush. Leach continues it, and Gould scores! 4-2 Caps. They win 5-2. Murphy again plays very well, gets an apple to boot. Caps lead the series 2-0 on the verge of committing a sweep, but we have seen this before. Game 3 on the island. Rudy is back in net for the Isles. The Caps are getting a few chances, but they still get the only goal in the first period. After Scott Stevens makes it 2-0 in the second, he does more damage as he and Murphy keep the puck at the point, but Murphy moves in just a little bit closer. Scotty sees him. Murphy parks it past Rudy. His first goal of the playoffs. 3-1 Caps. Is it finally happening? The Isles do get one back early in the third, but Peters is playing amazing in net. Could this be it? Do the Caps have the Isles number? 1 minute to play. The fans at Nassau can't believe what's happening. 30 seconds. They pull Rudy. Chances are slimmer. 10 seconds. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1-0. The Washington Capitals have finally beaten and to boot swept out the New York Islanders in 3 games. This is the first time since 1978 the Isles have failed to win a playoff series, and the first time in their history that they've been swept. Murphy was amazing. A goal, a helper, was an even 0, but was working hard game in, game out to get his team the advantage. What a huge moment he gets to be a part of. And now on to the Patrick Division Final. And many were expecting an epic series between the Flyers and Caps, but no, it's the New York Rangers winning them in the division final. So Rangers stunned the Flyers in a thrilling 5-game series win, but this of course is a best of 7. The Rangers were a mediocre club, finishing the regular season 34, 38, and 8 for 76 points, 31 behind the Caps. They had one of the weakest power plays in the league, an average penalty kill. They had the second worst goal total in the league, but their strength was defense and goaltending, giving up the third least amount of goals in the league. Head coach Ted Sater, however, has his boys focused. Also, the regular season series between these two is tied at 3-3-1. There was, however, some gifted forwards on this club, including rookie sensation Mike Ridley. A gifted center with tremendous size and not afraid to go up against anyone. He had a nice scoring touch, and for the Rangers had 22 goals, 43 assists for 65 points in all 80 games, was an even 0. He barely missed out on being a finalist for the Calder Trophy, coming in 4th. They had more size than another up-and-comer and sophomore Swedish import Thomas Sandstrom. 25 goals, 29 assists for 53 points in 73 games, and led the team in goals. A physical player, not afraid to assert himself either, and was solid on defense and checking situations. This forward core had more talent, but also dealt with many injuries throughout the years. Pierre LaRouche only played 28 games, but still had 20 goals. Veteran Don Maloney was solid, as was Kelly Miller. Bob Brook notched 24 goals. Mark Osborne missed 12 games, but he's playoff hungry. Mark Pavlik had 40 points despite missing 21 games. Mike Allison missed most of the season, but he is here, as are Jan Eriksson, Brian McClellan, and new acquisition to add goals, pesky power forward Wolf Paymon. The defense, however, is rock solid, led by Finnish import Riho Ruotsalainen. Despite not being a big guy, his skating skills allowed him to work in any zone defensively or offensively, as he did at 17 goals, 3 assists for 59 points, and was a team-leading plus 22. And he was 4th in the league in offensive point shares with a 5.7. Also on the score was the grossly underrated James Patrick, a 9th overall pick for the Rangers in 1981. He broke out this year with 14 goals, 29 assists for 43 points in 75 games. Wasn't afraid to use his size to throw a good hit. He was also a plus 14. Also on the defense this year, Ron Greshner had an excellent year. Barry Beck missed many games due to injuries, but is healthy and playing well in the postseason. Also featured the likes of Nasty Willie Huber, Larry Milnick, and Kjell Samuelsson. But their MVP was the man between the pipes, the man they call Beezer. John Van Beesbrook. Great at playing at any angle, quick, and at times aggressive. He had an amazing record at 31, 21, and 5. His wins were tied for best in the league. His 3.33 goals against average was 5th, and his 87 save percentage was 9th, and had 3 shutouts, which was tied for 3rd best in the league. He was honored as the NHL's top goalie winning the Vezina, and of course was a first-team All-Star, and he came in 5th for Hart Trophy winning his league MVP. So this is indeed the first meeting between these two in the playoffs. Can Murphy and the Caps finally get to the conference final? Let's find out. Game 1, the Caps center is electric, and they are playing a solid system early, and Murphy is frustrating the Rangers. After taking a clear out of the puck from Langway, he goes in on goal with Christian, who gets the goal. The Caps strike first and carry a 2-1 lead after 1 and a 3-2 lead after 2. But the Rangers tie it midway through the third, and we're going to overtime. 116 in, McClellan wins it for the Rangers. The Caps dropped the first game. Murphy did play a beauty, however. Game 2, the Caps aren't losing focus as they completely humiliate the Rangers. They led 4-1, and while killing the penalty, Murphy clears the puck out to Gould, goes in on goal with Duchesne, and the latter scores! A great play from our hero. The Caps win 8-1 and tie the series at 1 apiece. Murphy is incredible, +3 to go with the assist, and heavily exposed the Rangers' offensive weakness in this one. Game 3, we shift to the Big Apple at Madison Square Garden, and it's rabid. Murphy played decent here, but this was the Pete Peters, Barrett, and Carpenter show. The netminders saw 29 shots. The forwards each scored 2 goals. In a 6-3 win, the Caps take a 2-1 series lead. Game 4, it looked great. The Caps led 3-1 after 1. Ready to take full control of this series with the Rangers tied in the second. But with 1-on-1 to play in the frame, Larry to Bobby C to Bobby G. Gould gives the Caps a 4-3 lead after 2, and the Caps take a 5-3 lead. But the Rangers caught them and tied it with 2:35 to go. We're off to overtime, and Bob Brook wins it for the Rangers. The series is tied 2-2. Oh, boy. Game 5, back at the Caps center, and again, it looks great. 2-0 Caps, just 3:34 in. But the Rangers tie at 2-2, and Beezer is a machine in net. The Rangers take it 4-2. The Caps trail the series 3-2. What is happening? Murphy played okay. And now Game 6 in front of a ruckus Madison Square Garden crowd as the Caps face elimination. They pressure Beezer, but they just can't get anything by him. Rangers led 1-0 after 1. They go 2-0 in the third. This is bad. But just over 5 minutes later on the power play, Gardner back to Murphy, up to Carpenter. The Caps have life and trail 2-1. They push for the equalizer, but Beezer's just too hard to handle. The Caps lose 2-1. They lose the series in 6 games. Another big upset win for the Rangers. Murphy had 4 helpers in 6 games. It was a +1. He was outstanding in the first 2 games, played okay in the next 3, and was playing really well in the final game. He did face a small bit of criticism, but again, more so it was goalie Pete Peters who was scapegoated, as he did have a rough series, not able to contain one of the worst offenses in the league. Either way, the Caps still struggle to get to the next level. The Rangers would go on, however, to get beaten in the conference final by the eventual Stanley Cup champion Montreal Canadiens in 5 games. Well, back to the regular season. Murphy had 21 goals, 44 assists for 65 points, just 1 point shy of his career high. He played in 78 games, merely missing 2. Murphy's role this year was primarily that of an offensive fourth forward, if you will, in many situations, allowing Langway, Stevens, and Hatcher and others to play the more defensive side. But wow, the wealth here was spread out pretty far, with almost all the Capitals' top forwards, Howard, Christensen, Gustafson, and Gardner, each assisted 5 ties on Larry Murphy goals. He and Gustav teamed up for 14 goals. His assists were spread out, 8 each to Christian and Gardner. He and Christian teamed up for 17 goals, as Christian had a banner year himself. Murphy and Gardner teamed up to produce 17 goals as well, as 4 players each collaborated on 5 assists with Murphy. The before mentioned Gustafson, as well as Laughlin, Adams, and Carpenter. Well, hey, another solid year for Larry Murphy. He finished a +2 and helped lead the Caps to yet another great regular season record, breaking their previous marks of 101 with 107 this time. And again, he was more so used as a fourth forward in many ways, but still played a good shutdown game, and for the most part, that worked. He was just 1 goal shy of his career high, and a point shy too, while tying his career high in assists. He was solid in the playoffs for the most part, but the Caps' playoff failures were a bit of a concern. And again, his clutch abilities came into play huge this season, helping the Caps win many games because of it, and they did indeed win many games because of those heroics. But further going forward, his utmost importance to the team had yet to even scratch the surface. Now Larry Murphy is about to enter his 7th NHL season and 4th as a member of the Washington Capitals in 1986-87. Once again, they were only behind their division rival Flyers and Oilers as favorites to win the Stanley Cup, but they faced many changes. Gustafsson went back to his native Sweden to continue his pro career, but Murphy had clicked with him quite often throughout this tenure. The Caps' inability to win the big one, however, is something that can no longer go unnoticed. But what will Murphy's role be this year? Despite his extensive versatility, it seems to change often. Well, let's find out. We opened the season with back-to-back games against division rivals, first in Pittsburgh. Larry is excellent. helping lead many rushes, and was a +2. The Caps lose 5-4. But Kerr, Tocchet, Prop, Howe, Hextall, and the Flyers crushed them 6-1. Murphy's a dreadful -3. The next game was on October 13th when the Murph and the Caps traveled to New York to face the very team that eliminated them from the playoffs, the Rangers. And it was not good early. The Rangers scored a shorthanded power play goal early on to lead 2-0, and then they led 3-0 in the second. Cue number 8. On a power play, Murphy anchored a rush that led him to setting up Bob Carpenter for a goal. The Caps are in this thing, but they trail 4-2 after 2. It's still not looking good in the third. Nearing the midway point, Christian comes in with Murphy, and Larry sets up the youngster Yvon Corriveau for his first NHL goal. The Caps close the gap to 4-3. 2:16 later, Hatcher gets the puck to Murph and sets up Mike Gartner to tie the game, en route to a thrilling 7-6 OT win. Larry had 3 apples, all primary assists, and was named third star of the game and was also a +2 on top of that. He was superb every which way, as the Caps get a measure of revenge against their division rivals. The next 4 games are hit or miss, however. First, it was a bad 7-4 loss to the Islanders. Murph did have a goal and a helper, and then they dropped a tough loss to a sad-looking Sabres team. Larry a -2. He was also -2 against defending Cup champion Habs in a 5-4 win. However, he played much better against the Nordiques in a 4-4 tie, getting a goal. The Caps came back home on the 24th to face Cicerelli, Bellows, and the North Stars. And the Stars struck just over 2 minutes in, and then number 8 struck as Gould and Duchesne set up Murphy for a goal. The Caps tie it, and they ended up leading 3-1 after 1. In the second period, a Carpenter shot ends up on Murphy's stick for a rebound goal. Second goal of the game, 4-1 Caps. They lead 4-2 after 2. It was 6-2 in the third, and on a power play with 1:38 left, Murph sends in rookie Mikhail Palanka for the goal. 2 goals, an apple, 3 points, a massive +5 in this 8-2 win over the Stars. And speaking of Stars, he was named first star of the game for his performance. Remarkable. The very next game against the Devils, Murphy scored the third period game-winning goal for a 2-1 win. He was named second star of that game. He then played great against the Canucks in a 5-2 win, but ended the month in a 6-3 loss to the Oilers, scoring a goal. But a very good start for Murphy. Despite the odd rough game, he finished the first month of the season with 6 goals, 6 assists for 12 points, 11 games, and hey, a point per game. It was a +4. The Caps are struggling, but Murph is doing all he can to make it work. In November, Murphy continued to look great. 2 goals, 8 assists for 10 points in 14 games, and a +3, but the Caps overall were not looking all that stellar. He didn't play well on losses to the Flames and Isles to begin the month, but played a great shutdown game against the Canucks, and did the same against Savard in a disappointing Blackhawks club in a 3-2 win, and also had a helper. He continued to look sharp in a tie with the Stars, and he was tremendous in a 2-2 tie with the Hawks. His clutch heroics on display. He assisted on a goal earlier, but with 3 seconds left, Stevens found him on an open spot, and Larry slapped it on to tie the game. He was named second star of the game. But after rough losses to the Nords and Flyers, they would then lose to veteran Dion and Taylor, and youngsters Robitaille and Carson and the Kings 6-5. Larry played his heart out, had another goal and a helper in that one. Larry then had 2 assists against an improving Red Wings team in a 3-3 tie. Caps blowing a 3-1 lead in the third period. He played well in the loss to Mario and the Penguins, holding the magnificent one off the score sheet. Played even better in a 2-2 tie against Bork and the Bruins. Looked solid in a loss to the Flyers, as well as a loss to Quebec. The Caps are winless in 10. But Larry's actually getting praise heaped on him for his play. One Washington sports publication said that Murphy, along with fellow defenseman Scott Stephen and goaltender Bob Mason, were the only things to cheer for at the Caps Center so far this season. But then the Caps went on a 4-game unbeaten streak to start December. Larry was excellent against the Habs, using a shutdown game to hold them to just 18 shots, was a +1 in a 2-1 win. Then Murphy brought his clutch heroics again to Winnipeg, this time scoring a goal with 2:35 to play to tie the game 3-3, and that's how it would stay. He's also a +2. Then he scored a goal in a 3-1 win at home against the Habs. Then he assisted on goals to Haworth, Pavanka, and Christian, 3 apples in a 4-2 win over the Devils, and was named first star of the game. In this stretch, the Caps win a much-needed 3-0-1. Murphy had 2 goals, 3 helpers for 5 points, and a huge +6 in 4 games. Many praised Murphy for playing the best hockey of his career at this point. But the next 4 games were the complete opposite, and they were throttled by rookie Vincent Danfus and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Murphy a -3. Then it was a home-and-home series with the Rangers. First game, Larry was a bit sluggish, was much better on the road, but not so good against the Devils, going -3. This Caps streak, they lost 4 straight. Larry had a goal and a helper each and was a -6. But this would be the only stretch of bad hockey that he'd play all year. And he was ready to bounce back with a vengeance on December 20th, 1986. The Caps were ready to host the St. Louis Blues, led by young superstar Doug Gilmour. It was a highly competitive game to start, and both teams were looking strong. But on a power play, Murphy is steering the ship, and he sees a red-hot Howarth, who gets the goal, putting the Caps on the board, leading the game 1-0 and getting the crowd going. The Blues, however, not long after would tie the game, and it remained 1-1 going into first intermission. 44 seconds, however, into the second period, Rod Langway scored a rare goal to put the Caps up 2-1. But then 2:14 later, Paul Cavallini gets the puck to Murphy, who centers it for bengt-ake, who scores, giving the Caps a 3-1 lead, and giving our hero his second helper of the game. And the Caps say it. They're looking great. The Blues got one back. It closed the gap to 3-2, but 31 seconds later, the Caps went on a power play. Garner sees bengt-ake, who sets it up nicely for Larry Murphy at the point. His 12th goal of the year, his 3rd point of the game. He is on fire, playing his heart out in this important game. The Caps now lead 4-2. Then at the midway point of the period, Howard sees Larry, who sets up Greg Adams, his 3rd assist, 4th point of the game. An incredible night for our hero. Larry Murphy is truly excelling as the Caps MVP this season so far. And they go on to win 5-3. And Larry Murphy, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, and a +3 for number 8. A career night for Murph as the Caps fans give their guy a standing ovation as he skates out as the game's first star. What a night and what a year he is having. After a solid game finally beating the Islanders, he did end the month with the goal and assist over the Hawks, and then a rough loss to the Red Hot Whalers. But wow, 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points. In 12 games, it was a -1, but despite some rough outings, again, Murphy has been acknowledged as the main one the Caps seem to rely on this season to give a big performance. They do sit at a bad 12-19-6 to begin 1987. And actually to begin 1987, they parted ways with Bob Carpenter to the Rangers, along with a 2nd-round pick, but in return they got Bob Crawford, Kelly Miller, who is a solid player, and Mike Ridley, a Rangers rookie sensation from last season. Again, Carpenter is someone that Larry has clicked with quite often. The Caps will go 3-3-1 to start January, no worse and no better than they were to end December. Murphy had a goal and 3 helpers for 4, but it was -5 to begin the month as the team could not make any headway. He had an assist against the Penguins in a win, a -2 in a 4-1 loss to powerful Philly. He was on -1 against the Blues in a 6-4 win, but broke up some key plays from the opposition. They managed to lose 5-2 to a Lemulus Penguins team, but back home against their rivals, they scored a 3-2 and Larry with a goal and a helper and a +2, and providing great defense, and was named first star. Then they fought to a 2-2 tie with the Flyers. Larry again making some awesome defensive stops in that one. Then he had an assist in a very tight 3-2 loss to Howard Chuck in a very strong Winnipeg Jets club. But then came a very much needed 5-game winning streak, and Larry was again playing like some of the best hockey of his career. First, a tight 3-2 win on the island. Murphy assisting on goals to Deschene and Ridley. He's also a +2. Then it was off to Hartford to face Ronnie Franchise and the Whalers. Murphy had a helper on a Christian goal and was a +2 again. Then was a home-and-home with the Devils. First in the Garden State, a 6-1 win. Murphy gets his 15th goal of the year. And Murphy played another epic outing with a goal and a helper and a +4. A 6-3 win over the Devils, and he is indeed the game's first star. Then he assisted on Dave Christian's game winner with 3:48 to play, and a 3-2 win over the Sucky Sabres. But against those same Sucky Sabres, they lose 6-3 at home. Larry in on all 3 goals. A goal and 2 helpers, was named the 3rd star of the game. Then it was a pretty bad game, 7-5 loss to the Penguins. Murphy had an assist in a tight 2-1 win against Stevie Y and the Wings, and with 4:32 left against the Islanders, Murphy assisted on Mike Gardner's game-tying goal. It ended in a 3-3 tie. January was another banner month for our hero. In 16 games, 4 goals, 12 assists, 16 points, a point a game, and an even 0. But the Caps are still 3 games below 500, as they are in 3rd, which is a good spot, obviously, but not so comfy as past, as they only sit 2 points ahead of the Rangers, 3 ahead of the Devils, and even just 4 over last place Pittsburgh. Murphy seems to now be the primary reason why they're not worse than the Devils or Pens at this point. The first 3 games of February saw the Caps beat the Jets, and Larry a +2 in that outing. Then it was back-to-back losses against the Rangers and Whalers. That's not good. He had a goal in the latter. On February 7th, a very important game against the New York Rangers, as both teams sit at 52 points. The Rangers have won 3 in a row. Winner will go ahead third place. And early on, it's a back and forth battle for puck control, but the Caps bombard the Beezer and he's stopping everything. At the other end, Bob Mason is making some good stops while Murph and company provided good defense and were scoreless after one period. In the second period, however, 5:53 and Pavanka slides back a pass to Murphy. He sets up Ridley for the goal. But two Tony McKechnie goals silenced the Caps center as the Rangers took a 2-1 lead. Just 1:16 later, and Murphy take the wheel, steer to Christian, and help Laughlin get a goal. Oh, Kerry, eat your heart out. And the game is tied 2-2. Murphy with his second apple of the night, and then a power play, you'll say. And Pavanka back to Murphy, who holds until he sees Laughlin, who gets the goal. The Caps lead 3-2, and Murphy has his third assist of the night. The Caps take that lead in the second intermission. In the third, however, the Rangers strike with 2 goals 15 seconds apart, and one of them assisted by former Caps star Bob Carpenter, no less. And just like that, the Rangers are up. But never fear, Larry's here. Power play. He waits, drawing the Rangers penalty killers closer. Just enough to let Kelly Miller get open, and the former Rangers scores. We are tied 4-4. Larry Murphy, 4 apples, and that's how it would end after regulation time. So we're up to overtime. But Washington would lose with 40 seconds left in overtime, and back then there were no points for OT losses, and the Rangers move into third place. This is not good. Murphy again, however, still proving to be an ace out there, and was named second star of the game, his second 4-point game of the year. Thankfully, the Caps were going to get a break as the exhibition series Rendezvous 87 took place, a 2-game exhibition between the NHL All-Stars and the Soviet national team in place of the All-Star game. Murphy was again overlooked despite the year he was having. When the Caps returned to action, however, on February 15th, they traveled out west. First, it was the Oilers, who they stunned 5-3. Murphy playing well against Gretzky. It was a staggering -4 on this night, and Murphy was a +2 in a 5-3 win. 3 days later in Los Angeles, Murphy scored a beautiful solo effort off a neutral zone giveaway that opened the scoring, and he assisted on a Laughlin power play marker to make it 3-1. But the Caps fell completely apart and lost 7-4. Then Washington went to Vancouver to face Tony Tanny in a very sad-looking Canucks squad. Murphy had 2 assists, both to Mike Gardner, and was a big +3 and a 6-4 win. The Western road trip ends in Calgary on February 22nd as the Caps down Joey Mullen, Al McInnes, and an excellent Calgary Flames team 5-2. Murphy again with 2 helpers. And he was also a +3 and second star of the game. Then it was back home against the Wings, and the Caps throttled them 8-2. Larry with 2 more assists and a +2 to end the month. Another big win over the Oilers, 5-2. Larry a +2, Gretzky a -2, and no shots on goal. The Oilers were held to just 17 the whole game, and Murphy was responsible leading the way for that along with Scott Stevens. 4 wins in a row. What a month. Murphy playing more career games, 2 goals, 11 assists, a massive +13 in 10 games. Unbelievable. And the Caps are looking much better as they head into the final 17 games of the year, 14 in March, 3 in April. But the Caps' winning ways weren't quite done. On the 1st of March, they beat the Rangers 7-3. Murphy with 2 big apples in that one. And he had an assist in a tight 3-2 win over the Devils. 6 wins in a row, 9 assists in those 6 games, a +9. Yes, indeed, the media is talking. Larry is definitely in the Norris Trophy conversation. The Caps are now tied for second place with the Islanders with 66 points. But then they lose 3 straight. First the Flyers, and Murph did have a helper. A rough outing in an overtime loss to the Bruins, and then an assist in a 6-3 loss to Calgary. This put the Caps back in third place. The Rangers is 2 points back of them. And even the Pens sit just 3 points back of them in 5th. There's actually a chance the Capitals can miss the playoffs for the first time since 1982. On March 13, 1987, they hosted the lowly Leafs. There should be no excuse to lose this one, with the Leafs strike just 2:18 in. But then 2:04 later, Ridley back to Murphy up to Lou Franceschetti, and the Caps tie it. With 1:46 to go in the first, Murphy hits a long pass to Dave Christian, who goes in on goal, he scores! Caps lead 2-1 after 1. Wendell Clark tied it for the Leafs on a power play early in the second, but speaking of power plays, Howarth centers it for open Murphy at the point, he scores! Haha! His 20th goal of the season, his 3rd time reaching that mark. The Caps go up 3-2 and go on to win 10-2. Yes, Murphy is named second star of the game for his big night, as he, along with first star David Jensen and third star Mike Ridley, each had 3 points on the day. Wow! But again, the goal, 2 apples, giving this team momentum when they needed this for the dominant win to set them on their way. Big ovation from the Cap Center faithful. However, they had to settle for a 3-3 tie with the Blues. Larry did play very well and was a +2. And he had 2 assists in another loss to his former team, the Kings at home. Oh boy. And the Caps have slipped down to 4th, and the Pens are just 4 points back of them on their tail with 9 games to go. The Rangers, however, are only ahead by a point. It's time for Larry to lead his team and avoid season failure. And boom! 3 wins in a row. First against the Flyers, 4-3, +2, holding Lemieux to no shots, no points. What a shutdown game. Then against Boston with 1:58 to go, he sets up a goal for Duchesne. Clutch heroics in a 4-3 win. And a very important game against the Islanders. Murphy assists on what proved to be Laughlin's game winner in a 3-1 win, putting the Caps 75 points, back in third, 3 ahead of the Rangers, 1 back of the Islanders with second. They would stay 1 point back of the Isles as the 2 of them battled to a 2-2 tie. He played very well. Then it was a win over the Sucky Stars, Murphy assisting on the game winner in a 4-2 win. Then he played a beauty against Leafs as well in a 4-2 win. They are unbeaten in 6, and they have officially clinched the playoffs and are 1 point up of the Islanders for second. Can they complete this quest? Indeed they do. And our hero leads the way, an assist in a 5-1 win over the Rangers. And on April 4th against division champion Flyers, Murphy scored a beautiful power play marker that tied the game in the second period. Then in overtime, Howarth sets him up for the winner. Murphy's first ever overtime winning goal. The Caps Center went bananas for that. He was named first star of the game. What a moment for this career year he has had. Oh my goodness. Then he ended the year scoring his 23rd goal of the year, beating the mark that he set in 81-82 of 22. Again, whole new career high. As they beat the Devils in overtime to end the season, a 9-game unbeaten streak to finish the year. And indeed, they took second place in the Patrick Murphy during this stretch. 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, +5, and the Caps going 8-0-1. And have momentum, much needed momentum going into the postseason. Well, what a way to cap off, pardon the pun, the final stretch of the season. The final 17 games, Murphy, 4 goals, 13 assists, 17 points. Again, point a game. Was an excellent +6. And the Caps finished 38, 32, and 10 for 86 points, a far cry from their prior 3 seasons, but still good enough for second place in the Patrick Division. And one publication said, the Caps made it, and they should be kissing Larry Murphy's skates. But anyway, you slice it. It's playout time. And for the 5th straight year, and 4th for Murphy, they will take on the New York Islanders. The Owls finished with a record of 35, 33, and 12 for 82 points as their glory days seem to be in the rearview mirror. Terry Simpson is actually now the head coach of the team as Al Arbor has moved to the front office. They also have a strong power play, but their penalty kill has gotten weaker. Their offensive production has taken a dip, while their defense and net mining still remains good. The Caps did win the season series against the Isles this year, 3-2-2 record. And after finally beating them in the postseason last year, repeating that feat is very much a high possibility. But now, the first round is a best-of-7 series going forward. Brian Trottier, however, still brings that savvy playoff experience he's always had. This year, he had 23 goals, 64 assists, which was 4th best in the league, and for a total of 87 points in all 80 games. Next is Pat... Oh, hell, just once. LaFontaine. Played in all 80 games, 38 goals, 32 assists, 70 points. His 19 power play markers were tied for 3rd best in the league. That was another big year for Brent Sutter, 27 goals, 36 assists, 63 points in 69 games. He also led the team with a +23 and was 5th in the league with 8 game-winning goals and was 13th in Selke Trophy voting as a top defensive forward. Now also on the forward core, Mike Bossy's year was sadly plagued with back injuries. He was still productive when he was healthy, but he won't be seeing much action this series. Pat Flatley proved to be a reliable hard worker. Mikko McKella had a great year. Also, Dwayne Sutter still provides toughness and rounded out by more role players such as Greg Gilbert, Alan Kerr, Randy Wood, Dale Henry, and Richard Chrome. Denny Potvin, however, still leads the defense and the team, but he had a rough year. He missed 22 games due to injury, but still had 12 goals and 30 assists for 42 points in the 58 he did play, but finished in the minus for the first time since his rookie year. But he did hit a huge milestone, becoming the first defenseman in NHL history to reach 1,000 career points. Ken Morrow was still a huge asset, especially in the playoffs. Also in this core, Ken Leiter, Gerald Diddick, Thomas Janssen, Brian Curran, Steve Conroy, and Gord Dineen. And in net, Kelly Rudy is the man they're going with again this year, finishing the year with a 21-15-7 record, a 3.31 goals against average, 881 save percentage, and he did garner a vote for the Vezina. So again, here we go. Game 1, the Caps center is ready, and Gardner strikes 15 seconds in. Duchesne and Miller make it 3-0. Larry is playing great as the Isles attempt to come back, but they do fall short. The Caps take Game 1 4-3. Murphy is a +2 and in command of his ice. Game 2, however, tells a different story. Kelly Rudy is playing magnificent in net, and the Isles take it 3-1, tie the series 1-1. Murphy didn't play overly bad, but was pretty ineffective. Now we shift to the island for Game 3. Bob Mason gets to start in net, and he's outstanding. He and Rudy put on a show. And late in the first period, however, Christian on the wing to Gardner, who hits a pass to Larry Murphy, who scores the goal. 1-0 Caps after 1. And it stays that way after 2. The goalies are playing their hearts on the Caps on an empty netter and a 2-0 win. Murphy officially with the game winner. The Caps go up 2-1 in the series. And oh my goodness, this is good. Game 4, the Caps are pressuring Rudy early, but it's the Isles that strike first, just past the midway point of the period. But then 43 seconds later, Langway gets the puck way up to Murphy, who snaps it in on goal. The game is tied 1-1. The Caps are up 3-1 after 1. Then later in the second period, still holding on to that 2-goal lead, Ridley up to Murphy, who sets up Gardner. He scores. 4-1 Caps, and that's how it would stay. Murphy with a goal and a helper, each in a +3. He's named second star of this game. He's having a tremendous series, and the Caps lead the series 3-1 and are 1 win away from advancing to the second round, the Patrick Division Final once again, and they return home in hopes to end it. Game 5, the Caps center is excited. The Isles, however, silence them, take a 2-0 lead after 1. Rudy is a wall. But the Caps wake up their fans and tie it 2-2 in the second, but the Isles would lead 3-2, and go on to win 4-2. Murphy played okay here, but now the Isles are in this thing. Game 6, back on the island, but again the Isles lead 2-0 after 1. But in the second, the Caps score 3 goals to take a 3-2 lead, and the Isles strike back with 3 more to lead 5-3 after 2. Miller gets 1 back for the Caps. They lose 5-4. The series is tied 3-3. Oh, Murphy did not play well here. What is going on? Well, either way, it's a 7th and deciding game back at the Caps Center on Easter weekend. And the goalies are looking strong, but Gardner strikes late in the first. 1-0 Caps after 1. The Isles tie up, and late in the second, Murphy gets it to Adams and sets up Grant Martin. It's 2-1 Caps after 2. They're hanging on. Mason making some big saves. With 5:23 left, Mason lets in a puzzling Trottier goal, and we're up to overtime. Rudy has gone from being a wall to a force field. Mason Evers making some big saves on his own end. And 1 overtime becomes 2. 2 becomes 3, and 3 becomes 4. One of the longest games in NHL history, and yeah, I think most of you know how this one goes. 8:47 into the 4th overtime, Pat LaFontaine's infamous goal ends the Caps season, and the Isles take it in 7. The Caps' collapse here is almost inexcusable. The Isles were pretty banged up in this series, with several key players missing a couple games, and again, there are many substitutions as well, and scratches before many games. Unbelievable. Murphy did play well in this series, especially in the games the Caps won, and he did show up for Game 7 despite the loss. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, and a +3, but a sad way for his big year to end. The Islanders would take the Flyers to 7 games in the next round, but ultimately lose. Well, Murphy joined Team Canada for the final 6 games of the 1987 World Ice Hockey Championships, along with Scott Stevens, who played in a couple games. Murphy did play pretty well, but Canada faltered in the medal round and came in 4th. And now, back to the regular season. Larry Murphy scored 23 goals, 15 assists for a career-high 81 points. Oh my goodness, beating the mark of 76 from his historic rookie season in LA. And his pairing shifts with Scott Stevens this season was nothing short of amazing, as Stevens was one of the 3 players to set him up for 5 goals. The other 2 were Haworth and rookie Michael Pavanka. Stevens and Murphy also collaborated on 8 assists together and teamed up for a total of 14 goals. Talk about a dream team. Once again, the chemistry with superstar Mike Gardner continued as Murphy set him up 9 times for goals, and together they teamed up for 14 goals. Emery was a major part of Michael Pavanka's rookie year, and the 2 also teamed up for 14 goals, which was just under a third of Pavanka's overall point total. He and Haworth were a great team again this year, teaming up for 16 goals. He also continued to work well with Dave Christian. Murphy was set up by 15 different players. He in turn set up 16 different players and teamed up on assists with 17 different players. Wow. Murphy's 81 points was second best among defensemen scoring in the league, only behind Ray Bourque of the Bruins. This is the first time since his sophomore season in 1981-82 that he has been amongst the top 10 defensemen in scoring, and the third time in his career. On top of that, his 58 assists were among the top 10 in the league, ranking in at number 8. And has his abilities to set up and hit beautiful passes to players were on full display in spectacular fashion. What a truly elite list this is. Murphy was also ranked third in total goals on ice for, with 163, only behind Ray Bourque and Wayne Gretzky. And teammate Scott Stevens was ninth with 150. Just another great list of talent here. This is the first time since his rookie year, however, Murphy has made the top 10 in this category. And also for the third time in his career, the third time in 4 seasons, he was a top 10 in defensive point shares with the 5.7, a career high, ranked tied for 5th with the great Larry Robinson of the Montreal Canadiens. For the first time since his rookie year, Larry got votes for the Norris Trophy, and he was a finalist, coming in third, garnering 31 votes, finishing behind Flyers' Mark Howe, and the winner, Ray Bourque, who was actually his first. But Larry didn't go home empty-handed award season. He was named a second team All-Star, a huge honor in his career, and only the second defenseman in Capitals' short history to be named to the All-Star team. Of course, Rod Langway being the first to do it. And as you can see here, Murphy is in good company with this selection. A truly incredible season, the best of his career at this point. The versatility of Larry's abilities throughout his career have been on display, but again, it seemed like they were always switched up during a given season. But he created a crazy three-dimensional hybrid, it seems, the way he played, maybe even more dimensional than that. His defensive shutdowns, his ability to lead on special teams, coming up on the clutch, momentum shifting in a game, his passing and setup game, and working as a blue line forward as well. They were all here this year in whatever the situation called for. He, along with Stevens, were credited for the Caps being able to overcome their obstacles this year. He stepped up his game, and as the season progressed, more and more players, even the big stars like Gardner, were responding to him. Top 10 in 4 categories, a career high in goals and in points, and a career high plus 25. Kind of finalist for the Norris, the top defenseman for the first time, second team All-Star for the first time, and played in the 1987 World Championships for Team Canada. What a banner year for Larry Murphy. Coming off of a career season, Larry Murphy is ready to keep surging forward, but the Caps need to make a huge change. That's pretty clear. And Coach Brian Murray, as well as General Manager David Poile, starting to come under fire more than ever before. And they did indeed make a splash, parting ways with Alan Howarth and Gaetan Duchesne, and a first-round draft pick to Quebec in exchange for goaltender Clint Malarchuk and Dale Hunter. Nasty, pesky, gritty centerman who's also highly skilled and a great leader. The Caps also parted ways with goaltender Bob Mason. Also, Gustafson returns to the team this year. But before the season was set to begin, Larry had some other business to tend to. As yes, indeed, he was selected to play for Team Canada at the 1987 Canada Cup. After his epic year, his former junior coach Mike Keenan, who was the head coach of this team, wanted him there. Murphy was one of 7 Capitals players to be selected for this tournament, as Gardner joined him on Team Canada. But for Team USA, they had Kevin Hatcher, Kelly Miller, and Captain Rod Langway, while bengt-ake Gustafsson and Peter Sundström were representing Team Sweden. But something to note, Canada was so stacked this year that Scott Stevens was cut from the team. Wow. This Canadian team had 12 future Hall of Famers, and a couple more you could probably make an argument for. Murphy was ready for international action. He was always present in the 4-4 tie with the Czechs. He had his hands full with a determined Finland team, but he was fierce and had a tireless work effort early in the second period. Notched an assist, beautifully setting up Kevin Dineen of the Whalers to make it 3-0. Canada won the game 4-1. He looked at a tight and exciting 3-2 win over the United States, but he would get hurt during that game and as a result missed the win over Sweden. but he returned for the exciting 3-3 tie with the Soviet Union. Then was his playoff semifinal game against the Czechs. Canada was down 2-0 in the second period, and once again, Murphy helped take charge of getting his team in the game, as he's done so many times in his career. As at the midway point of the period, Murphy began a play, which got the puck to Nordic star Michel Goulet, and sends up Dale Howard-Chuck, who scores the goal, and leads to a 5-3 Canadian win, and a berth in the final against the Soviet Union. And Murphy is saving his best for last. It will be a best-of-3 series, and Murphy is playing with extra determination, it seems. Tied 4-4 in the thrilling Game 1 after being down 4-1, Murphy begins with the puck, allowing Messier to set up Glenn Anderson. Canada leads 5-4, but they would end up losing 6-5 in overtime. Game 2, Murphy's getting significant ice time, and this is an exciting game as it comes. Canada tries to avoid elimination, and they were looking good, leading 5-4, but with 1:04 left, the Soviets tied it. A thrilling edge-of-the-seat overtime followed in Hamilton's Copps Coliseum. Murphy was everywhere. Then it went to the second overtime. And it made perhaps one of the biggest plays of his career. Well, at least at this point. And from the point, he launched the puck in on goal. It was stopped. Gretzky tapped it. But rather than go for the rebound, he slid it to Mario Lemieux, who scored. Larry's importance on this play has been heavily acknowledged and emphasized. An assist on the winning goal. Two of the best players in the game. Larry was playing some fantastic hockey. And here it was, Game 3, winner takes all. Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Copps Coliseum, September 15th, 1987. Oh boy, it was bad early. The Soviets went up 3-0 in just 8 minutes. But 150 later on the power play, Goulet has it. Murphy shoots when it stopped. Tuckett with the rebound, he scores! Again, Murphy setting it up for him perfectly. Canada is in the game. They get another, but they trail 4-2 after 1. And then around the midway point, Lemieux, near the side of the boards, gets it to Gretzky behind the net. Oh, that's dangerous. Sees Murphy wide open. He scores his first goal of the tournament. Larry Murphy. Oh, what a huge one. Canada now only trails by 1, and Murph's goal is fed to him again by 2 of the best in the game. This is a huge shift in momentum. 1:36 later, Brent Sutter tied it. And then nearly 4.5 minutes later, Murphy is out of the zone. And after a shot from Prop, Sutter makes a key check, and the puck comes up to Howard-Chuck, who scores. Murph gets us as Canada leads 5-4. And that's how it stays after 2 periods. And he was just playing unbelievably at this point. But the Soviets do tie in the third. Murphy has a goal and 2 helpers for 3 points. But his biggest contribution is about to come. Time is winding down. On the ice, arguably 3 of the top centers in the game. Gretzky, Lemieux, and Howard-Chuck. No arguing about it. They were. I guess you could make an argument for Yzerman. But anyway, Coffey and Murphy are with them on defense. It just doesn't get much better than this. Howard-Chuck gets a draw. He wins it. It's out to Lemieux, who bounces off a player, gets it to Gretzky. They switch up. Murphy is wide open going in on goal, but the Soviets players see him and are keeping their eyes on him a little too much. And they miss Lemieux, who Gretzky gets a butt to and scores with 1:26 to play. Canada leads 6-5. Murphy was the perfect decoy. And again, his presence on that play has been acknowledged as a big reason why it worked so successfully. And yes, the tie counts out. Canada wins the Canada Cup. Larry Murphy has his first professional sports championship. His play in the finals was nothing short of outstanding. And many feel he should have been named player of the game. Hey, goal, 2 helpers, 3 points, and that big play to win it. But it went to Dale Howard-Chuck, who I'd say deserved the accolade, but Larry would have been every bit as deserving. Murphy continued his momentum from his big season, playing some of the best hockey he has ever played. And overall, he had a goal, 6 helpers, 7 points, and a +8. As a matter of fact, Murphy's +8 led the entire tournament. Yes, this is something that gets overlooked quite often, and further shows the difference he made. He was not, however, selected to the tournament all-star team. Some feel in hindsight that was a bit of a travesty. Ray Bourque was, and don't get me wrong, Ray absolutely deserved it 120%, but once again, Murphy was being overlooked in many ways. Despite this, he still called the Canada Cup one of the greatest and best and proudest moments of his career. His chemistry with the top guys, Gretzky and Lemieux, and being paired with Paul Coffey fairly often. Hey, it worked. Well, back to the NHL. Murphy is coming off a great season and a Canada Cup win to boot. And when you had a year like he has had, the pressure is on to follow it up. The Cavs still have one of the craziest and most stacked defenses in the league that you could ever dream of. Murphy and, of course, Stevens and Langway, as well as youngsters Kevin Hatcher and Gary Galley, who was acquired late last season. This is utterly crazy. Up front, the Cavs still have many key elements, including Gardner and the newly acquired Dale Hunter. In that, Clint Malarchuk and veteran Pete Peters is still there, so let's see if the Cavs can finally reach the next level, and what will our hero do in that regard. He looked good to start the year, 10 assists in 11 games and an even 0. The Cavs off to a decent start themselves. Highlights included a great game against Hartford, where not only did he have 3 assists, 2 of which were to old pal Gustafson, but he played a great shutdown game, helping hold the Whalers to just 17 shots in a 6-2 win and named the game's second star. Then the very next day against the Rangers, he assisted on Hunter's first goal as a Capital, and the game tied 3-3 with 154 to play. Stevens and Murphy set up Dale Hunter for the winner in a 4-3 win. He also had 2 assists in the 3-3 tie against the Sucky Stars on Halloween. November started well. Murphy had 2 assists in a 3-2 win over the crappy Canucks, including a helper on Bobby Gould's game winner with 2:53 left. He was also a +2, helped hold the Canucks to under 20 shots, and was named first star of the game. After losses to the Nords and a surprisingly good-looking Devils team, they then traveled to the island in hopes of revenge for last year's playoff exit. But to rub salt into the wound, Pat LaFontaine got a hat trick, and the Isles led 3-0. But on the power play, Stevens gets it to Christian, back to Murphy, who scores his first goal of the year. The Isles, however, still leading 3-1, and it's after 2 periods. Then 112, and on a power play, the same trio, only this time it's Larry to Scotty to Davey. They trail by 1. Then at the midway point, oh yes, Scotty to Davey to Larry. His second goal of the game, a 3-point night, ties the game, but the Caps lose in overtime. Murphy is named the game's second star. Then it was a loss to the Lemulus Penguins, and the Caps' 4th loss in a row. They ended the losing skid, beating the Stars 4-1, Larry having a helper and playing well in the shutdown game. Despite playing another excellent defensive game, the Caps lost 1-0 to the Red Wings. Then it was a loss to Dave Anderchuk, rookie Pierre Turgeon, and an improving Sabres club. Murphy had a goal and a helper. He had an assist against the disappointing Whalers club in a win. He looked sharp against Bork and the Bruins in a 4-1 win. Then it was a home-and-home with the Penguins, first a 4-2 loss and a 5-5 tie, the latter of which Larry played very well. 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points, and a minus 1 in 12 games this month. Not bad, but the Cavs are again sluggish and inconsistent. To start December, it was a 4-game homestand. First, Murphy again had the number of Wayne Gretzky, the defending Cup champion Oilers, as Murphy had an assist and was a +2 and a 4-2 win. Number 99 was -1 and pointless. Then it was another loss to the Islanders, 6-4. Murphy had a helper, but they bounced back in a 10-3 win over the Kings. Murphy had 3 apples, gifted to Gould, Hunter, and Ridley. Murphy also played really well against McKinnis, Suter, McCrimmon, and the Red Hot Flames. Yes, indeed, that pun is very much intended. With 2 helpers and a +2, but the Caps lost 5-4. On the road, they lost to Hartford 5-4. Murphy had a goal, but it was a bad -4. Either way, this was a 5-game point streak for our hero. 1 goal, 7 assists for 8 points. The rest of the month, Murphy played decently, shutting down the Leafs in a 4-2 win on the 18th. And while down 1-0 to the Blues with 2:54 remaining, he set up a Lou Franceschetti power play marker to get the point in a 1-1 tie. Overall in December, he was solid. A goal, 10 assists, 11 points, and a +1 in 14 games, missing just 1. They begin the new year in 1988 taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins at home. The Pens are perennial losers for many years, aren't that bad anymore. This Mario Lemieux kid has kind of made something out of this club. Now, the scoring was opened up by Dale Hunter on a power play just 8:11 in, but the Pens tied at 3:08 later. The score 1-1. But just 49 seconds later, Hunter passes it back to Murphy, who sees Dave Christian, setting him up for the goal. The Caps lead 2-1, looking great. However, just 2.5 minutes later, the Pens tied on a power play. And on a power play of their own, Stevens steers it to Murphy, and he sees Mike Gardner. Murphy's second apple of the game, 3-2. The Caps take their lead back, and that's how it would stay going into first intermission. The second period saw the Capitals getting under the skin of the Pens players, and it paid off late in the period. When on another power play, Stevens up to Gardner on the wing, back to Murphy, who launches it home. Give the Caps a 4-2 lead, as this Caps defense is not letting them get any barrages on Malarchuk. That would be the only goal of the second period, and the Caps carry a 3 lead. Murphy with a 3-point night. The Pens get one back on a goal from Dale's brother Dave, shorthanded, and closes the gap to 4-3. But just under 2 minutes later, Sundstrom sees Murphy, who sees Greg Adams, and the Caps are up by 2, just like that. Lemieux actually got a 10-minute misconduct penalty, killing any chance of a Penguins comeback, and the Capitals win it 5-3. A big victory over their division rivals. And Larry Murphy, a goal, 3 assists, 4 points, first star of the game. A big performance from our hero, a big way to kick off the new year. In the next game, they showed the Gretzky-less Oilers 2-0. Murphy with a helper in that one. He also had an apple in a big 3-1 win over the Flyers. And then after that, he had a goal and a helper against the Rangers in a big 8-4 win, which was the Caps' 5th in a row. Then it was back-to-back losses to Calgary and Edmonton on the road, but Murph still played well in the latter. He had 2 assists in a big 8-3 win over the Kings, and then he had an assist each in losses to the Blues and the Blackhawks. They had the road trip a pretty bad one, 4-0. But they returned home, and he had an apple in a 6-4 win over the Devils. He played well in a 3-3 tie with Buffalo, and then had 2 assists in a 3-2 loss to a disappointing Jet squad, but was named 3rd star of the game. To end the month, he had an assist in a tight 4-3 win over the mighty Habs, and played well in a huge overtime win over the Flyers. Overall in January, 2 goals, 15 assists, 17 points, and an even 0 in 14 games. Some are pointing out Murphy wasn't playing like he did last season, and while that may be true, he's still very valuable to this team, that's very clear. Murphy was solid again in February. A goal, 5 helpers, 6 points, and a +1 in 11 games. The Caps, however, began the month losing 3 straight, but then they began a 6-game winning streak, which started with a 5-3 win over the Rangers. Murph had a helper. They followed that with a 6-2 win over the Isles and a 5-4 thrilling overtime win, where Murph had an apple, but more impressively was a +4 in that game. He then had another assist in a tight 4-3 win over the Devils, played well in a shutout win over against the Jets. Then on February 20th, in a 3-0 shutout win over the Sucky Stars, he had a goal and 2 helpers, and on all 3 goals, it was named 2nd star of the game behind goaltender Clint Malarchuk. The streak came to an end, however, in a tough loss to the LA Kings, but they bounced back with a big 3-0 win over the Islanders. With 17 games left, the Caps are looking solid. In 3rd place, 6 points up on the Rangers, and only a single point behind the Isles in 2nd and 5 points back of the Flyers for 1st. The Patrick division is tighter and more competitive than ever this year. The Caps won 4 straight to start the month of March, which put their overall streak at 5. First a home and home with the Devils. Larry played great in both games with an apple each. Then they dominated the disappointing Nordiques and crappy Canucks. Then it was back-to-back losses to division rivals, however, Flyers and Rangers. Murphy with a goal in the former, but this didn't actually hurt them too much in the standings. Then it was back-to-back road wins over the Bruins and Rangers. Then a tie with the Isles. The Caps at 81 points are in 1st place, ahead of the collapsing Flyers. Are the Caps finally going to win the division? No. They go 1-5-2 in their final 8 games. Murphy having 3 apples in the second to last game of the year, a loss to the Penguins. Murphy had a goal, 7 assists, 8 points in the final 17 games, and was really good with a +1. But regardless, the Caps do make the postseason as they finished 38, 33, and 9 for 85 points, just a point less than last season, and that's good enough for 2nd place. The Caps finished 2nd for the 5th straight season. And now, it's my halftime. And awaiting the Caps for the first time in 4 years is the Philadelphia Flyers, whose streak of division titles came to an end this season. They finished 38, 33, and 9 for 85 points, the exact same record as the Capitals, yes. However, the Caps were given 2nd place due to a tiebreaker rule, due to a better goals for and goals against ratio of +32, while the Flyers were dead even at 0. And indeed, Philly had taken a bit of a dip from recent seasons. Their power play started to suffer, but they still had one of the best penalty kills in the league. Their offense and defense were still pretty strong, and head coach Mike Keenan wants to get the Flyers back in the finals for a 2nd straight year and 3rd time in 4 years. And the Cats at the Flyers' number this season, however, going 4-2-1 against them. Who indeed gives the Flyers seen their attributes? Well, leading the way was a sizable, strong two-way winger, Murray Craven. He notched 30 goals, 46 assists, 76 points, tying the team lead in points, was an excellent +25. A career year for the Medicine Hat, Alberta native, who garnered 3 votes for the Selke Trophy. Brian Propp continues to be a star and led in Philly and a model of consistency. He garnered 27 goals, 49 assists, and 76 points, tying Craven for the team lead. He was a good +8 and remains reliable as ever. Bengt-ake is proving to be one of the NHL's best power forwards and nastiest at times. He led the Flyers with 31 goals, added 33 assists for 64 points in 65 games. His 299 penalty minutes were also 8th most in the league. Also on this forward core, hard workers such as Peter Zezel, Ilika Sinisalo, and Scott Mellenby all notched over 20 goals. Tim Kerr, however, the goal-scoring phenom, only played 8 games all year, but he's ready to play in this postseason. Master penalty killer Dave Poulin was 7th in Selke Trophy voting, while Ron Sutter also got some votes. Rounding out this forward core, Pelle Eklund, Derek Smith, and Dave Brown. Leading the defense was still the tremendous Mark Howe, 19 goals, 43 assists, 62 points, an excellent plus 23, and garnered 3 Norris Trophy votes, and 8th in Lady Byng Trophy voting. Jean Samuelson had a great year, leading the team with a plus 28, and 5th in the league in offensive point shares. Old school Brad Marsh and underrated Doug Crossman were present, as were Willie Huber, Greg Smith, rounding out the solid blue line core. In goal, it's the one and only Ron Hextall. Nasty, gritty, but very talented. He had a record of 30, 22, and 7, third best in wins. He had a 3.51 goals against average and 886 save percentage, which sure, but he did garner 2 Vezina Trophy votes, and despite a losing cause last season, was the Conn Smythe Trophy winner's playoff MVP in 1987. Well, here we go. Game 1, the Cap Center once again ready for playoff action, but Ron Hextall is a wall. He is stopping everything. Pete Peters is making some good saves, but the Flyers actually lead 2-0 in the second until Pavelka scores a power play marker. Dale Hunter then scored a power play goal to tie it. But the Flyers go on to take Game 1 4-2. Larry not playing overly well here. Game 2, however, is a seesaw battle. The Caps strike first, but then the Flyers take a 2-1 lead, but the Caps tie it. It's 2-2 after 1. Flyers go 3-2 in the second, but the Caps are leading 4-3 after 2. Caps ended up winning 5-4, tying the series 1-1, but Murphy largely ineffective here, and worse, he's injured. And he's not going to play in Game 3 as we ship to Philly. The Flyers take it 4-3. Big nights from Poulin and Howe, but now the Caps trail 2-1. Game 4 is still at the Spectrum. Murphy returns and still doesn't play well. He's a -2 and worse. The Caps blow a 4-1 lead and lost 5-4 in overtime. They now trail the series 3-1 and are on the verge of elimination. Here we go again. Back at the Caps Center for Game 5, but whoa, wait, Murphy plays the best he has all series, and Peters is a marvel in net. Gustafsson has an epic night, and the Caps win 5-2. Hey, they're still in this thing. Game 6, back in the city of brotherly love, a huge night for Pavelka as the Caps dominate 7-2, stunning the Flyers' faithful in attendance, and Larry made some excellent shutdown plays. We're going to Game 7. And the 7th and deciding game is at the Caps Center, and the fans are on edge. But it looked bad. The Flyers led 3-0 in the second, but Galley, Miller, and Hatcher all scored a tie. It's 3-3 after 2. Hunter gave the Caps the lead in the third, but then Philly tied it. Just over a minute later, the time is winding down. We are off to overtime. Then, nearly 6 minutes in, Murphy gets a key poke check and sends the puck up to Dale Hunter, who goes in on Hextall and scores. The Caps win the series in 7. What a thrilling win. Our hero setting up the series-winning goal and what was his only point of the series, and what a time for it to come. And yeah, he was a -4 in 6 games, which isn't good, and he didn't actually start playing well until the comeback. But wow, he's playing more like himself by the end of the series, and now they're ready for the division final, the greatest comeback in Capitals playoff history at this point, down 3-1, coming back to win in the 7th game. Tremendous, and that should give them some momentum. And indeed, in the Patrick Division Final, they encounter a new postseason foe, the New Jersey Devils. They finished 38, 36, and 6, or 82 points, their first winning record in their history. Crazy as the Devils, back when they were the Kansas City Scouts, when they entered the league in 74-75, the same year the Capitals did. And their only playoff appearance before this was slipping in barely as the Colorado Rockies with a losing record in 1978 and getting humiliated. This revamped, hard-working, never-say-die team under coach Jim Schoenfeld came together especially late in the season, and they won their first playoff series ever, stunning the first-place New York Islanders in 6 games. The Devils didn't have the best penalty kill, but they had a decent power play, and both their offense and defense improved drastically. The Caps, however, won the season series with a big 5-2-0 record. Let's see what makes up these underdog Devils. They were led by Captain Kirk Muller, a tremendous leader who was key in helping this Devil team rise and emerge, bringing out a winning attitude in his teammates. He had a career year himself, 37 goals, 57 assists, 94 points, and a +19, all career highs. He came in 10th in Selke Trophy voting and garnered a vote for the Hart Trophy. Also, they had the little ball of hate, Pat Verbeek. A career year for him, leading the team in goals with 46, adding 31 assists for 77 points in 73 games, and a tremendous +29, which actually led the team. 33 of his goals came on even strength, tied for 6th best. and tied for third with 8 game-winning goals. Aaron Broughton's 7th season proved to be a career year for him. 26 goals, 57 assists for 83 points, and played in all 80 games. As he's seen the Devils through some terrible times, dating back even to Colorado. He was a career best plus 20 and made some big plays throughout the year that were key in winning the Devils many games. Also in this forward core, you had Devils legend John McLean, Swedish sensation Patrick Sundstrom, acquired from the Canucks, Miracle on Ice star Mark Johnson, hard-working and aggressive Claude Loisel, as well as Doug Brown, Pat Conacher, Doug Sullivan, Dave Maley, Perry Anderson, and a rookie by the name of Brendan Shanahan. On the defense, Joe Cirella, a 5th overall pick in 1981, really saw his game grow tremendously this year. He played in all 80 games and was tough physically as well as mentally. He was a plus 15, added 39 points as well, and was tied for 7th in defensive point shares. Bruce Driver had a career year, 55 points, leading all defensemen scoring on the Devils. Tom Kurvers, despite missing several games, was productive when healthy. Fan favorite Ken Danico added more toughness, while Randy Valichek was solid, and as was Greg Willanen. In goal, it's rookie sensation Sean Burke, who joined the team late in the year after excelling for Canada's national team for quite some time, even playing in the Winter Olympics in Calgary that year. Joining the Devils, he went 10-1-0, an amazing record, a very good 3.05 goals against average, an 83 save percentage, and a shutout. He also got a vote each for the Hart Trophy as MVP and Calder Trophy as league's top rookie. He took this team by storm instantly, and here we go. Game 1 at the Cap Center, fans are rabid. They have a good feeling after that comeback over the Flyers, and it looked good. The Caps led 1-0 in the second, and just 3:29 on a power play. Gustafsson sees Murphy open at the point. Larry scores! It's 2-0, his first goal of these playoffs. Then late in the period, Gustafsson again finds Murphy. He gets it back to Stevens, who slaps it home. 3-0 Caps. They hang on to win 3-1. A goal and a helper for our hero. He's the 3rd star of the game. And the Caps strike first blood. Game 2, however, it's looking bad. The Devils led 3-1 thanks to Broughton's hat trick. However, in the second period on a power play, late in the frame, Mike G to Mike R to Larry M. He puts the Caps within 1, and also Larry gets into a fight with Pat Verbeek in the 3rd period, and the Caps lose 5-2. The Devils even the series, but Larry played very well here. Game 3 to the Garden State, and it's bad again. The Devils are leading 4-1 in the second period, but then Dale to Pavanka to Larry Murphy. And our hero's goal cuts the lead in half to 4-2, but the Devils will take a 5-3 lead later. Gustafsson, however, next sees Larry out front, and Murphy gets a 2nd goal of the game. And the Caps only trail by a goal, but that's literally as good as it would get. The Devils humiliate the Caps 10-4. This, of course, was Sundstrom's historic 8-point game. The 2 goals is a small consolation for number 8, as the Devils now lead the series 2-1. Game 4, however, the Caps don't lose focus and get frustrated. Murphy is, again, eye of the tiger. He's excellent here, making some great defensive plays, and the Caps win 4-1, tie the series at 2. Game 5, we're back at home, and while Murphy has a solid game, the Caps lose 3-1. His backup goaltender Bob Sauvé plays great in net for the Devils. But the Caps are now on the verge of elimination again. Game 6, Murph and the Caps are not panicking, however, much like in the series against Philly. And the Devils, however, strike just 18 seconds into the game. But again, they don't lose their cool. Murphy begins a play that leads to stick of Pavanka, who sets up Ridley. The game is tied, and the Caps are just pulverizing the Devils, leading 6-2 in the 3rd. Then on the power play, just to add the final insult, Murphy over to Stevens, sets up Gardner. 7-2, and that's how it would end. 2 apples for our hero, and giving his team momentum when it was desperately needed. And we're off to another 7th and deciding game. The Caps just 1 win away from their first conference final appearance. Game 7, the Caps center on edge again. And they are so excited. Hey, it was bad early. The Caps were down 2-0 after 1 period. But then Lydiard and Galley wake the fans up. It's 2-2 after 2. Murphy, however's not playing his best game. And with 6:11 left, McLean scores for the Devils. Oh, not again. The clock is ticking down 1 minute. They're pressing. Burke is playing like a veteran in net. 30 seconds. Come on, guys. 10 seconds. Someone tie this thing. 5. Come on. 4. 3. 2. 1. 0. The Caps lose 3-2 in the 7th game. Season again ends in heartbreak. Murphy played well the entire series, but in the most important game was his most lackluster effort. But Gardner took more flack than he did in the media. In all 7 games, Murphy did have 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points, point a game, and was an excellent +4. He tied the team lead in scoring with Scott Stevens. Caps were oh so close, but not close enough once again. Despite the loss overall, this might be the best Murphy has played in an entire playoff series. The Devils actually would go on to lose to Boston in a thrilling 7-game series in the Wales Conference Final. Well, back to the regular season. Larry Murphy had 8 goals, 53 assists for 61 points in 79 games, missing just 1. This is the first time in Larry's career he hasn't reached double digits in goals. Be that as it may, he was key in what was a career year for Scott Stevens, who was actually the first runner-up for the Norris Trophy. Stevens assisted on 5 of Larry's 8 goals, more than half, and they collaborated on 12 assists together, and a total teamed up for 18 goals. These two complemented each other almost perfectly. Murphy set up Mike Gartner for 15 goals, as Gartner had 48 that year, and they also teamed up for 21 total goals. These two just click so well together. Also, Murphy continued to click well with Dave Christian, and setting up 13 of his 37 goals, and had great chemistry with major acquisition Dale Hunter. He also showed that old spark with Gustafsson here and there as well. Well, Murphy again made the top 10 once again amongst top scoring defensemen, finishing tied for 9th with Habs superstar the great Chris Chelios. Despite a severe decline in goals, his setup skills are still on point. Teammate Scott Stevens finished 4th in defenseman scoring. Murphy was also tied for 7th in defensive point shares with a 5.0, sharing this spot with Whalers' Randy Landouceur, Steve Smith of the Oilers, and Joe Cirella of the Devils. All people could seem to talk about was how this season was a far cry from the last for our hero, without truly acknowledging how much he aided Scott Stevens in having his career season. And indeed, Stevens did the same the year prior for Murphy. But Scott got a lot of credit then. Murphy this year did not. He didn't have a bad season at all. Yeah, it was down from last year, but the fact he still began with a Canada Cup and then the tournament with a +8 says a lot. And yeah, he was only a +2 this season at Washington. But it seemed he, along with Gardner, were taking some very unfair flack for another postseason exit. It seemed this was around the time Poyle, along with Coach Murray, were starting to sour on old number 8. The Caps enter a year of uncertainty, seen as a consistently good team who just has a ceiling and will never win the big one. Media coverage for hockey in D.C. and the Maryland area was more extensive than it was when Murphy played in L.A., and they scapegoated him and quite a few others, as a matter of fact, for not being able to get the Caps where they need to go. However, there were some Devils advocates pointing out that the scrutiny is a little unfair, and how some so-called experts have short memories. But either way, the 1988-89 season sees no guarantees in the Patrick division, which has now been shaken up with the rise of the Devils and Penguins. And he got out to a very rough start, however, this season. 3 assists and a -7. Ouch. 10 games in October, missing 1. And the Caps started 3-7-1 as the team as a whole just looked completely disorganized and unfocused. Murphy may not have played well, but he wasn't the only one to blame. Scott Stevens also had an awful month, and so did a few other key players. But our hero bounced back with a much better showing in November. The Caps looked great. Murphy began the month by setting up a key goal while down against Stevie Y and the Red Wings 3-1, making it 3-2 on the way to a 3-3 tie. Then it was a split in a home-and-home series with the Isles, Larry playing well in both games. On November 10th, he had a goal and a helper in a 4-1 win over Stastny Goulet, Joe Sakic, and a terrible Nordique squad, and was actually named 3rd star of the game. He had a helper in a loss to the Devils, but he helped his team bounce back, with 2 helpers against Bellows, Broughton, Cicerelli, and the Sucky Stars in a 4-2 win. That began a 5-game winning streak. In the 5th game, Murphy had a goal in a 7-6 win over the sluggish Islanders. Next game, in a loss to Super Mario, Paul Coffey, and the Pens, he had 2 assists. They ended the month with back-to-back wins over the Blues and Hawks, and another loss to the Pens, where Murphy had an apple. Overall, 2 goals, 8 assists, 10 points in 14 games in November, and an even 0. In December, the Caps stayed solid, and Larry was playing decently. He didn't score in the first 8 games of the month, but he played well in a win over the Flyers and in a scoreless tie with the Habs. It was a very good +2 in a 4-1 win over the Nordiques. And played well in a win over wimpy Winnipeg. But the media once again got on Murphy's case for his lack of scoring production, granted. But either way, he broke the slump with an assist and a loss to the Rangers. And then got another apple in a win over the Hawks, 4-3. Then another in a 2-2 tie with the Rangers. After a big win over the Flyers, Murphy plays a biggie against the Sabres, assisting on Gardner's game-tying goal, and helping out Gustafson's game winner and was a +3 and perhaps his best performance so far this year. They ended the month in a loss to the Isles on New Year's Eve. Murphy in December had 5 helpers, was an even 0 in 14 games, didn't play bad by any means, but the media, now apparently the organization, was actually starting to feel differently. The Capitals began the new year in 1989 with a 7-game unbeaten streak, and Murphy looked excellent. The Caps throttled Mario on the pens, and they had number 66's number. He was a -3 with just 1 shot on goal. Murphy was superb with 2 assists and a +3. And he was helping hold their rivals at just 14 shots in that game as well. The Caps, however, did blow a 3-0 lead against the Rangers and had to settle for a 3-3 tie, but he played well and notched an apple in a 3-0 win over the lowly Leafs, and a goal in a 6-3 win over the struggling Hawks, and assisted on Dave Christian's game-tying goal with 5:35 left to get a 4-4 tie with Quebec. He played well in another win over Toronto and had an assist in a 5-3 win over the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Edmonton Oilers, who no longer have Wayne Gretzky on their team. In this stretch, Larry had a goal, 5 assists, 6 points, and a very good +4. Then the Caps would go on a 4-game winless streak, but he had 2 goals and was named third star in a 4-3 loss to Neely and the Bruins. He was more or less absent in the loss to the Devils and played poorly in a 4-3 loss to the Wings. But against the heavily revamped Los Angeles Kings, who now have Wayne Gretzky, with just 5 seconds left, down 4-3, Murray sets up Christian for a game-tying goal and a 4-4 tie. They broke the losing skid, well, winless skid I should say, with a 1-0 win over the Flyers. Larry had 2 assists in a tie with the Blues. Very good January for Larry. 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points, and a +3. But trade rumors were actually starting to circulate around our hero. February began with a 4-3 win over the Rangers in overtime, and then a 1-0 win over the Whalers, and a 3-1 loss to Philly. Then it was a 7-6 loss in overtime to the Kings. Murphy had 2 assists. Then a tight 2-1 loss to the scorching hot Flames. But the trade rumors were picking up as Brian Murray just doesn't seem to be happy with Murphy's play, and David Poyle's also starting to grow tired and wants to add more depth to his team in certain aspects. Murphy, who does not want to leave for the record, is starting to get frustrated himself with the current situation, not knowing where he stands as they're ready for a 6-game road trip. It starts in St. Louis against Brett Hull and the Blues. The Caps win 5-3, Murphy a -1. He had an assist in a bad 7-4 loss to Chicago, but then they throttled a good yet somewhat lifeless Oilers club, 8-2. Larry had an assist and was a +2 and held the crew to just under 20 shots. Then it was a 3-2 loss to rookie Trevor Linden and a growing Vancouver Canucks squad. Murphy's a -1. Gilmore, Neuendijk, and the Flames torched the Caps 6-2. Murphy did have a goal. Then they stomped Gretzky and the Kings 7-2. Murphy played very well, was a +1. In this stretch, the Caps went 3-3-0. Murphy had a goal, 2 helpers, 3 points, and was an even 0. He finished February back home with a good outing and a 4-3 loss to the Stars with a goal and a helper. Overall, February was hit or miss, back and forth, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, and not so good -4, however. And the trade wins were getting stronger. The Caps were in good position heading into March, 70 points in 3rd place, 5 above the Flyers, just 1 behind the Penguins for 2nd place, and even still within good striking distance to clinch their first division title, 4 points behind the 1st place Rangers. A quest for their regular season division title is something that has eluded them and they've come oh so close to before. But will Larry even be here to realize it if it happens? I mean, the trade deadline is approaching. To begin March on the 3rd, Larry played an excellent game in a big 4-2 win over the Pens. Key eluding the Pens' onslaught and helping hold Mariota to no shots and a -3. Larry was a +2. On March 5th, 1989, Larry played well in a 3-0 shutout against the Canucks. He had 6 penalty minutes in the game. And this was his 453rd game as a member of the Washington Capitals, and his last. 2 days later, on March 7th, 1989, the day of the trade deadline, the Caps sent Larry Murphy along with superstar Mike Gardner, a franchise icon, to the Minnesota North Stars in exchange for superstar power forward Dino Ciccarelli and defenseman Bob Rouse. Our hero's love affair with Washington is over after 6 seasons. His final season in Washington saw him score 7 goals, 29 assists for 36 points in 65 games, missing just 2. Mike Ridley assisted on 4 of Murphy's goals, more than half. Murphy found himself clicking, however, with new arrival Jeff Courtnall, who came over from the Oilers and had some good years in Boston. He gave Courtnall 5 helpers, and of course, this is the end of an era, as it was the last time he and Scott Stevens will be teammates. The two collaborated for 7 assists, just under a quarter of Larry's assists. Larry also clicked very well with his usual collaborators Dave Christian and bengt-ake Gustafson, and still clicked well with Dale Hunter again this year. Larry's final season in Washington was not his best, in 65 games and -5. The only time during his time with the Caps that he actually had a season in the minus. But Murphy wasn't exactly playing overly bad either. He did have his struggles here and there, but even the fans started scapegoating him as a problem. Gardner, however, was starting to get it worse, even though the fans never fully turned on him. But still, they were being scapegoated for a much bigger issue. But it wasn't exactly unanimous. Many fans and other during local news reports when they were being interviewed felt this was a mistake, and that while they were excited about Dino Ciccarelli, they still missed Mike Gardner, and they felt Bob Rouse, who was a solid defenseman, but many felt he wasn't anywhere worth a Larry Murphy. But be that as it may, his time with the Caps ends with a whimper rather than a bang. Murphy's importance to this Caps franchise, however, cannot and should not be undersold and ignored. Thankfully, Capitals fans now finally remember number 8. He was a part of many firsts with this team. Their first 100-point season, 3 straight 100-point seasons as a matter of fact, setting a franchise best at the time in 85-86 with 107. They also won their first playoff series the first year he joined the team. And of course, his career year at this point, 1986-87, where he played a more diverse and dynamic game than he ever has, and was a second-team All-Star and a Norris Trophy finalist. Again, his abilities to break up rushes, make good plays on a rush, and of course, hey, his offensive prowess is part of that, and also his clutch abilities. Murphy was a good, well-rounded player. And a factor that gets overlooked is the fact that he and Scott Stevens helped each other evolve in their respective games despite their different styles. Murphy finished in the top 10 in defensive scoring twice, and even in top 10 in assists overall once, and total goals on ice 4 once, and top 10 in defensive point shares 4 times. Also, Murphy's success on the international circuit. Wow. Played very well in the 1985 World Championships and got a silver medal, and again in Canada's big win over the Soviets, the first in nearly 25 years. And played in the 87 Worlds, and then won the Canada Cup several months later. One of the greatest rosters of all time, had an incredible tournament, especially in the finals, and in the championship winning Game 3. And he led the whole tournament with a +8. But why didn't things work out in the end in Washington? Well, the fact is, the Caps were just settled on being a really good team with a ceiling that couldn't go beyond, like I mentioned earlier. And are the players, including Murphy, to blame? Well, again, to a point, maybe. But Murphy should be regarded as one of the best in the game right now. And Coach Brian Murray's system also had a ceiling. And whenever he changed things up just a little bit, it was just the same result over and over. And while Murphy was very diverse and it helped him evolve, his role kept changing, which maybe was part of a hindrance too in a small way. But perhaps that's why he's not seen in the same vein as his peers. But another factor, he's grossly overlooked in many ways despite his accolades. Also, can you blame him for the playoff follies? No, not really. Not at least individually. More often than not, he played pretty well in the playoffs. He had 26 points in 42 games and was a pretty good +3. But that again falls into many of the factors I just mentioned as well. Regardless, Murphy's contribution to the Caps in the 80s should be celebrated. In the 453 games that Murphy played in Washington, he scored 86 goals, 259 assists for 345 points, and was an excellent +56. Again, 6 seasons as a proud member of this organization. He didn't necessarily want to leave, but his frustration in this final season was becoming evident. And that does it. Indeed, for our look at Larry Murphy's time in Washington, in Part 3, we'll follow him to the land of 1,000 lakes, Minnesota. And then, in that same video, we'll look at a move that changed the trajectory of his career in a huge way. Please like and share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see ya!